My name is Jim Lehan. I am the clerk. Mr. Garrity will be here shortly. Mr. Bugby to my right, our vice chair. To my left, Mr. Jack Hathaway. To his left, Marion Harrington. I need to advise everyone that this meeting is being both audio and videotaped. We're starting early tonight, actually late, but close to early, because we're interviewing for a very important position for the community, our town planner position, and we have two great candidates with us this evening, and I will turn it back to our chairman, our vice chairman, Mr. Bugby.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Lehan. Welcome, Jason.
Thank you very much.
Again, sorry for the slow start, but we appreciate you coming back.
Well, thank you for inviting me back. I greatly appreciate it.
No problem, no problem.
Scott, you want, maybe Scott Bugby can just kind of...
Bragdon?
Bragdon? One of you will be fired in the morning. Just maybe walk us through the process that we went through and give us a little background.
Sure. Maybe I should...
Yeah.
Oh, we get a mic.
So, my name's Scott Bragdon. Let you know that about 6 weeks ago or so, we advertised this position internally and externally. Got 23 candidates or resumes, and we had a preliminary committee made up of people with Jack and Scott and some people from the land use boards who did the screening. We interviewed 6 of the candidates, have settled on 3. One of those candidates has since withdrawn their application, so we have 2 people coming in tonight. And the selectmen will be interviewing them this evening and then making their decision as to what they want to do for next steps.
Great. Thank you, Scott. Makes sense. Okay. Jace, thanks again for your patience. You know what? I'll kick it off, I guess. Can you just, for better for the folks at home and folks in the room, can you just tell us a little bit about your background, your education, your experiences that would qualify you to be Norfolk's town planner?
Certainly. Again, thank you very much for...
Jason, sorry, can I interrupt for a minute? I just got a call from Rob. He's going to be here in about probably 5 minutes. So,
Do you mind hanging in there?
Sure, no
So
problem.
that's right. Sorry, that's all right.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Sorry. So you can practice that question. You got a preview of what's to come. Yeah. Thank you.
do you want to do some other business for 5 minutes?
Yes, we can wait.
It's up to you guys. What do we got in?
Your pleasure, sir.
Well, we can knock off some of these action items, right? One of them, why don't we do considering appointing Andrea Langhauser as associate member of planning, but they already voted to do that anyways, right?
Planning board's already voted.
Right. Right, we have to vote, right?
I move to appoint Andrea Langhauser as associate member of the planning board.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That's done.
I think we'll wait. On the other action item is and Scott will have to give us some background on that, right, for the assistant town clerk. We can wait on that, right? We don't want to get started with the.
Yeah, you might want to wait for Rob to...
Yeah, wait for Rob. Sorry, Scott, yeah, because that would take more than. Yeah, I didn't know, but it might take more than 5 minutes. How fast Mr. Garrity can drive.
Scott, you want to talk about the KP budget? I know you went last night, or I can because I talked to the superintendent yesterday.
Yeah, last night was really, when I asked you, it was really just to catch up on some documents and some revenue estimates from revenues through January 2014. So nothing much has changed. I mean, the school committee already voted and approved their 29 million plus budget, right?
Yep.
And they've come, they met, as Jack said, they met with the town administrators at noon, I think. And one of the things that came out of that was, their hope is that they could get 50% from each town of their kind of new growth number would be dedicated to schools, and specifically their school, which stands. But they also know that, we're a tri-town district. All 3 towns have more than one school to worry about, so.
Say that again? They were hoping for 50% of the new growth number?
Yeah, that's what Dr. Liz kind of mentioned. I think she mentioned something probably higher to you, right? But
Yeah.
But that doesn't even.
We talked about, I kind of, this is an old subject, and I'm not trying to bring up old
I have my stuff.
wounds or scars. With the 2 other town administrators and with Dr. Liz and the finance, Paul Schaefer, the finance director, talked about the overall process of our budget and with the regional school and how it's challenging for all of us because of the many different moving parts and the multiple parties. Whereas in bigger towns have a simpler process because they allocate they have a formula for taking all new revenue and allocating it towards the school and towards the municipal side of the budget. And there's really not a lot of song and dance in the process. There's just a math calculation. Unfortunately, when you look at, and that's typically a number between 60 to 65%. And if we did that, that would be, you got $1.1 million, so you'd have $700,000 thereabouts going towards education. But the request from King Philip, just to put it in perspective, is
1.1.
$938,000 just from Norfolk. So that doesn't even begin to count the elementary school. So that's just I'd love to give 50.
No, I know,
from a
yeah,
budget
no,
point of view,
yeah.
I'd love to give 50%.
No, I say, yeah, no, she just said we have to start somewhere. I asked her, I said, how'd you come up with that number? And it's, they needed, they had to have some kind of starting point. I mean, I brought that up a couple meetings ago with them before. I'm like, how can you even approve a budget that's so high and so, so far out of our reaches, all three towns to fund that, to come up with that kind of money? And they call it a compliance service budget, and again, it goes back to their increase in special education costs, which is their driver.
Have they done has that number changed at all, special ed?
Not dramatically. Some of the circuit breaker stuff, the calculation they did, because they found some things that had to be backdated to 2013, but it's still in flux. They're working, they say, they're working as hard as they can with the parents and school districts to try to mitigate that, but a lot of times, again, as they know, coming into 7th grade, they're kind of obligated with an IEP plan. No parent in his right mind, I don't blame them, is going to switch off that immediately without knowing what the school can offer, and to bring it in district or even to something different than what they're currently getting when they leave from 6th grade from whatever town they come from.
But is the number they claim they're absorbing equivalent to what the elementary schools say they're dispatching?
They're dispatching. That is, that hasn't been 100% clear.
We talked about that a little bit, and they're going to have
Garrity?
Dr. Zielinski said they're using the number right off the census. I just got that for you if you want it. Right off the census from the school. So they're, from their perspective, they're confused as to why, because I know that some of the elementary administrators have raised that as an issue, and so they're going to have some more discussions among the administrators, superintendents, I guess.
And they did come up with part of the thing I remember that from last night too, they did come up with some more savings on the healthcare. They originally had factored in like a 5% increase for healthcare, some of the healthcare costs. They got that it's now down to 0, and they're actually going back with their consultant asking for it to go down 2 additional %.
Mr. Garrity, welcome. We have Mr. Jason Bashon.
Sean, yeah.
Nice. With us.
Thank you. Sorry, I apologize for my.
Oh, no problem.
Just put on.
About traffic.
Is he planning? What town?
Which town?
We'll be working on it.
We wish we had more. Well, we don't wish we had more time. I had just lobbed in the first question, Rob, of kind of tell us about your background, give us an overview of his education experience. So, and then we pause once we find out you were en route. So, I can turn it back over to.
All right, very
Here.
good, yeah.
Thanks, Jason.
Okay, so basically, again, thank you very much for inviting me back for this second interview. I greatly appreciate it. Now, my background is in regional planning. I have master's and bachelor's degrees both in regional planning. My master's is from UMass Amherst. My bachelor's is from Westfield State. I have over 13 years of public and private sector experience in planning. Most recently, I was employed with the firm Doucette and Associates in Northampton, Mass. I was there for 8 years. I was laid off from that job, unfortunately, several months ago due to a lack of available billable work. We suffered some layoffs, and unfortunately, I was one of those several months ago. Worked on a number of great projects in my time there. Project in the town of Deerfield, Complete Streets project, which we teamed up with a couple other consulting firms. Worked on projects in the town of Amherst, LEED Platinum certified building for New England Environmental, who was a client of ours, a sub-consultant of ours, and client actually, in fact. Also with the town of Amherst, the affordable housing project called Olympia Oaks, worked on that project as well. Projects in the town of Southampton, such as recreational field projects where we had ball fields and different aspects of that, creating essentially a pro-grade ball field and some other amenities there for the town of Southampton, and also their their municipal building. We worked on a project for that as well. So those are among the things I've worked on for that firm, and it was mostly in the preliminary stages where we do due diligence, zoning review, permitting assistance, meeting with towns and so forth, and cities and different clients, whoever, public or private, whatever the case may be. So just a variety of work there. Analyzing the zoning, helping, providing supervision to some drafters, our drafters in terms of concept work that we did prior to going to the engineers for design. So, for example, they'd be assigned a concept, and I would review their work based on the zoning and so forth, and other comments that I have that are in terms of good planning practice, and putting that forward to them so they understand and get a good concept that we can give to our engineers for final design. And working with the clients on that. Site feasibility reports for a variety of clients, variety of projects. So, just a variety of work helping our engineers. One thing that I talked about the last interview that when I was hired, that we had intended to do was establish a strong planning services division within that Northampton office. That's not our main office. Our main office is in Austin, Texas. So basically, the goal was to establish a planning services division within that office. Unfortunately, by the time 2008 rolled around, the economy got pretty bad, and there just wasn't the ability to hire additional staff. So the way we applied for a number of planning projects with a number of municipalities, ended up final 2 or 3 on many of those projects, some in this part of the state, some in Western Mass, Connecticut, throughout New England. We showed very well on those, but just never landed the one, except perhaps where we were a sub on the Deerfield project that I had noted. So a good variety of work, preparing proposals for work. That was a strong part of my services there. Doing marketing for the firm, marketing efforts to get the word out there about our services and what we're why they should hire our firm and things of that nature. Meeting with people. Prior to my time at Doucette, I was with the town of Windsor, Connecticut, for over 3 years. I was their assistant town planner, and a number of it was a great position. And we're in a lot of things down there in terms of rewriting zoning regulations and presenting them to Planning and Zoning Commission for approval. Redrafted the entire subdivision regulations document, and I presented that to the Planning and Zoning Commission for approval. Worked on their master plan, which is Plan of Conservation and Development, it's called in Connecticut. The Historic District Commission, I staffed that commission and guided them, and they issued certificates of appropriateness for the Palisado Avenue District that was within their jurisdiction there. Also worked on a historic resources inventory that covered properties outside of that district as well, and managed the town's GIS, created their official zoning map. It's just a wide variety of services, the same type of work that you would expect here at the assistant town planner level, but also assisted, with supervision when necessary, and staffing the various boards and commissions other than the 2 that I mentioned at times. So, just
how many people in that office? I forgot from last time. Sorry,
we had 4 people in that office. We had the town planner, we had an environmental planner, and we had an administrative person, and we were a larger. There's a whole larger development department there, so we worked consistently with the engineering department, the building department, the fire marshal, the health department. So they were all incorporated, and we all worked together, and so there was more than just the initial department and the services we provided. And then prior to that, I worked for the town of Amherst as a planning intern for 2 years, and worked on the GIS system there. That was a big part of my services, was working with one of their planners on the establishment and implementation of a GIS, enterprise GIS for the town. A lot of my work with that planner was working on quality assistance, quality control procedures, going out in the field, making sure that things in the field lined up with the work that the consultant had prepared. Also prepared many maps and so forth for the town, worked on a trail map for the town. Other items were landscaping guidelines, phase growth database, things of that nature, working with them. So that's the overview of my background. There are many, many other projects between all 3 of those positions that I've worked on. And also while at Doucette, I was also a volunteer and have been a volunteer in the city of East Hampton, my hometown. So with the Master Plan Committee, also Master Plan Implementation Committee, and I chaired the Highway Business District Review Committee, and we can talk about some of those things if you wish throughout the process here.
I do.
Okay,
First, thank you for being here.
thank you.
It's nice to see you. I'm sure you read the outline of our job description.
Yes, I did.
One of the things that we mentioned that I don't see necessarily referenced, but doesn't mean you don't have experience in it, is zoning.
Zoning,
Zoning.
in terms of
Well, we,
water reference, I thought.
well, in specific projects, yes, but in looking at our overall zoning, for example, we're looking, one of the requirements we're saying is reviews and update zoning bylaws and amendments to zoning bylaws, where we're like a lot of small communities. You know, we're all volunteers. We don't have a planner.
Yeah.
We have lots of volunteers that have a lot of capabilities, and we put what we think are the right groupings of zoning that meet the basic requirements and future requirements of the town. And sometimes we don't put all the pieces together correctly.
Right.
We have zoning law, bylaws that contradict each other.
Oh, yeah.
I remember one specifically where Mr. Hathaway and myself and I think two other gentlemen were in the room, and we were reading a specific bylaw, and we had,
I was the only one that got it right.
that's debatable. We had very differing views on what that bylaw meant.
Okay, yeah.
And I'm sure that's not unusual.
No,
Can you talk a little bit about experience you've had in
Absolutely.
reviewing bylaws and things of that
oh,
nature?
absolutely. I thought it was addressed, but let me clarify that for you, too. With the town of Windsor, and I'll go do set all reference as well. With the town of Windsor, I'd say between drafting new amendments to their zoning regulations, zoning bylaw, or creating new ones, or updating initial ones that were there to make them more, understandable and clear, or sometimes if they didn't work right and you had the contradictions that you talk about to make them work. I mean, dozens of them. We had, the way that Connecticut is structured, they have a planning and zoning commission. That planning and zoning commission can approve, they met monthly, and they can approve the bylaw amendments at their monthly meeting. Now, I know in Massachusetts that's different. I know that you do it at town meeting, and I know it has to be approved by the Attorney General ultimately. So, yes, I do have experience in drafting those regulations and modifying those regulations there. In terms of reviewing them for projects, I mean, at Doucette, that was a big part of what I did.
Yeah, that's
I
very
mean,
clear, yeah.
Yeah, so it's a big part of what I did, reading various communities' regulations and so forth, and interpreting them to make sure that the projects are accurate. So, and then when you work on, like at Windsor with an official zoning map that I created, so you get an idea of what works and what doesn't. You see what might be a spot zoning situation, which you can't have, things of that nature. So I'm definitely experienced in zoning enough to identify what works, what doesn't, what needs to be amended. One of the things I would propose, if I were here, is to go through your zoning bylaw thoroughly, start to finish, identify the things that make sense, things that contradict each other, things that, that might or might not work, and make clarifications there. And so I think that a revision of the bylaw, it would be something that we would be talking about early on in the process. I think it's essential that occur.
And what kind of resources would you draw on to do that, other than just getting a copy of our bylaws?
Well, I mean, I think initially, I would look through it and understand what you have, and understand and learn more about the community, and understand what the community's needs are, and pull that together. Ultimately, maybe you'd hire a consultant. You probably would hire a consultant to assist with that, or in-house. I mean, it could be done either way. That would have to be determined, but depending on the scope and so forth. But I have, like I said, I did recodify an entire subdivision regulations document, and the amendments to the zoning that I've done are in the dozens. So, I mean, it's not foreign to me. It's something that I've done many times. I'm very comfortable with it. So and I know how to identify conflicts and things like that in zoning, and things that work and things that don't. A lot of that occurs over time. You learn that, you discover those things over time as you become familiar with the position in the town, and so forth. But I do think that that's something I'm very comfortable with doing.
Could you talk a little about your volunteer experience in East Hampton?
I would, absolutely. So basically in East Hampton, I was on the master plan committee. The Pioneer Valley Planning Commission created the master plan for the city of East Hampton. I served on the economic development subcommittee portion of it and drafted that portion of the plan, working with a bunch of other citizens who are on that committee. So working with getting their input, I essentially drafted that portion of it for the overall plan that the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission prepared. I also worked at a Saturday workshop gathering feedback and presenting that at a public meeting in front of, had to be 100+ people in that auditorium for that meeting. So so I'm sure that'll come up about comfort in front of larger crowds. It's certainly something I'm comfortable doing. We are about, I think, 16,000 and change, just around, a little over 16,000. Part of that master plan was an implementation schedule. That's essential to any master plan. It's a living document. You got to make sure that it's not sitting on a shelf somewhere. It's important to make sure you're utilizing it. So there's an implementation committee that I served on for a while there in East Hampton as well. Also, the Highway Business District that I talked about, that committee, I was on that committee, became chair, started as vice chair, became chair. The way that started was we were actually drafting zoning regulations for the Highway Business District, which is the Northampton Street corridor, Route 10 connecting Northampton to the center of East Hampton. It's a gateway corridor. They wanted to make sure that the development was consistent and cohesive and in harmony with each other, and that, the design, right now what's there is kind of jumbled. It doesn't really flow well and everything. And there's a lot of conflicts too between, people thinking it's fine the way it is and people saying it's got to change entirely and so forth. So that was a big part of it.
How'd you resolve those? Do you think you did?
Well,
I know it's never easy, but.
Well, I think that we addressed them the best that the committee could. I think that what we did was we prepared the regulations. It turned out we decided with the previous city planner, who's one of my references, and we prepared the regulations. It was determined that the committee was not comfortable with having the regulations as the document adopted and finishing with the committee that way, so they wanted a report. So basically what the decision we came to was to take those regulations and create a report that the current city planner is using to establish the regulations, in fact, that will be adopted there. So even though we already even though we drafted some already, I'm sure those will be fine-tuned based on the report and so forth and what the current planner would like to do there. So in terms of, getting people together, it was definitely a lot of butting heads in those meetings and so forth. And you're not going to ever get everybody to get along. That's just, unfortunately the way that is. But, I think that we did the best we could for the community. I think the product is good, and I think that, that it'll move forward effectively.
You alluded to one in answering Scott's question, but can you share with me, first as a planner, you're crossing multiple boards.
Absolutely.
You do run into issues where there could be anything from turf issues, considerations, to you name it. Can you share an experience that you had where things didn't go as well as you hoped, and what you did to perhaps try and change or bring that to a better conclusion?
Okay. Well, I guess I could bring up, since we're talking about the Highway Business District Committee, I could bring up other things as well, but I'll talk about that first. Just when you have the situation where there is butting of heads, that committee formed based on, zoning that was proposed to modify the district. I think the location of the Highway Business District from, I forget what the number was, whether it was bring it from 100 feet to 500 feet or something like that from Northampton Street. So by doing a zone change to modify that, there was a lot of conflict there. And there's a Stop and Shop development that'll be constructed this spring that was a big part of that project. That was like 10 years in the works for that to.
Only 10.
Yeah, very long time.
We have one that's far longer than that.
But anyway, so there's a lot of conflict over it, a lot of, prior to that committee ever being established, and that's how it was established off of that. So, dealing with those issues, you have to deal with, conflicting views, conflicting opinions, people's views in a very effective, mild-mannered and courteous way. Be well-read and understand what, the work you're doing and so forth, and make sure that you're giving good information. And by doing that, also creating these committees, these advisory committees to address these issues is also an important thing. So being open to the public and so forth, and explaining things to them, not necessarily, how do I explain it? Not necessarily just don't give an answer that's not based on fact. Do your research and give an answer. If you don't have the answer immediately, say, I'll get back to you within a reasonable amount of time, things of that nature. So I don't know if that totally answers your question, but I think that's one good example of conflict, I mean, we've had, obviously, in the town of Windsor, we had, controversial applications, like subdivision applications for large residential subdivisions and so forth, that were very controversial, where you run into the same issues, and you just have to make sure that you understand the project, that you, obviously, by the time it gets to the Planning and Zoning Commission or Planning Board, obviously, you should have done a very solid review of the plans and everything, and have your potential conditions of approval and everything lined up and such, and address the Planning Board and the public with your comments on the project. So that whole public process is very important there, and making sure that you're prepared in advance is essential. So that's another, I guess, a brief example that would apply.
So, can I just add further, or ask further on that, or do you want to go, I'm sorry?
Well, Jack actually might have had a
Oh,
question.
sorry, I wasn't looking down that way, I apologize. Go ahead,
Sure,
Jack.
thanks. At the last interview, you talked about, I think it was a Tuesday meeting that you had?
Yes.
And how it sounded like a very productive meeting. I mean, maybe you can just give these guys a.
Yeah, there are definitely some ideas I have, if I'm fortunate enough to come here to fill the position, there are definitely some ideas I have for establishing a town planner's presence in the town and the department. One of them was to have development team meetings. We had them in the town of Windsor weekly development team meetings, where we had pre-application, people come in with pre-application, sketch plans and so forth, or just to talk about what they're thinking about, or people in the development process or the permitting process already come to the meetings and discuss their projects. And we had the various staff members there, the building department, the fire marshal, the health department, the town engineer, and so forth. So by having all those people present and reviewing and giving comments in advance of them going before the commission with their plans, you're resolving the potential for the unknowns that could come up in the meeting. There always could be some unknowns that come up, but you're getting things hammered out for the developer or applicant and helping them out to make sure that their plans are set before they go there. It expedites the permitting process, and what we want to do is expedite the permitting process. We don't want unnecessary delays on things. So that's an important part of that, and I think that was effective in doing that. Another thing that I don't think I brought up at the last meeting that we did there, and I've run into it a lot at Doucette too, is for smaller applications, smaller projects, allowing for administrative approval for something that might require like some landscaping improvements or a small parking lot or a building less than 2,000 square feet, just throwing a number out there. Whereas maybe the planning board could be, reviewing more intense plans. The smaller plans could go as an administrative approval from the planning department. The town planner would sign off on it, as well as maybe the building commissioner and health department and so forth. So, but it's just a thought of something that we could think about, or different levels of site plan approval based on the intensity of the project. So, but yeah, the Tuesday meeting was very effective. It helped with the process and keeping things moving along, and I just thought it was a good thing. I remembered it well, and it's something that I would like to implement. Maybe it's not weekly here. Maybe it's once a month, twice a month. But that would be determined. But I think it's an effective process, and you put everybody at the table at the same time, the different department heads at the table at the same time, and work out any issues there, and it just makes for a more effective process, I believe.
I forgot my question now, though. And Jack, sorry, I'll come back. There was something on the else you were saying, but
You mind?
Can you share with me a situation where, in terms of, you mentioned that you worked on master plans.
Yes.
A critical component of the master plan obviously relates to infrastructure and capabilities and things of that nature.
Yeah.
Can you think of a situation that you worked in where the build-out vision of the community wasn't compatible with the infrastructure capabilities of the community?
Okay, like in other words, the roadway layouts, or you need significant traffic improvements or so forth to accommodate the proposed development. Absolutely. I mean, you run into that, often. I mean, in terms of working on the plan of conservation development or the master plan in East Hampton, of course, your vision is going to be grand. I mean, you're going to come up with ideas that are very large, grand in scope, and and you have some wonderful ideas here. I mean, the downtown essentially that you're proposing to create here, and I did watch the movie on the website. There's very, very impressive. That's something that I'd love to see come to fruition here. That's a wonderful, wonderful vision, and that's something I would love to see happen here. But I think that, accommodating that, I mean, you have to, there's different planning studies you can do. You can have traffic assessments that people will do of the roadways. I mean, you look at the developers' projects too, and traffic reports from that. So there's whatever materials you already have come into play in terms of doing that as well from other projects. I would review, past projects for the development you already have. I'm sure that you had a traffic impact study for the work that you've already done here in the center. I'm sure that was probably part of the approval process. So, and of course, water and sewer capability. I mean, we worked on that at Doucette. I mean, in terms of making sure, researching to make sure is water sewer infrastructure in place. If not, can it be extended? Dealing with sewer extension permits. We've assisted with, filing those permits and so forth. So it's all things that I've dealt with. I guess that on a grand master plan scale, I'm trying to think of exactly how I'd put it into words for you, but it's things that we've definitely worked on, and I think, I know how to incorporate the infrastructure needs into whatever project, whether it be reviewing a development project or a master plan component.
Who do you see the planners working for?
Where do you see I'm sorry, say that
Who
again?
does the planner work for?
The planner works for the public first, and the planning board and the public, essentially, first and foremost. I mean, it reports to the town administrator, of course, but essentially, public, transparent position. You want to make sure that you are out there. I'd mentioned at the last meeting that I thought one great idea is to say, just throwing a number out there, 6 months into the position, maybe having a meet the planner, quote unquote, kind of session where you actually, once I get established and see, what the needs of the department are, have a public session where you're meeting with have them come meet with you and ask their questions and engage their feedback. And I think that's an important part of establishing and really building the planner's presence there. So public, obviously, it's your prime duty is to serve the public. And obviously report to the planning board and the town administrators. So
Okay.
I guess that's my perspective.
Okay. How would you go about understanding or evaluating what the vision of this community really is? In other words, what do the people that live here want the town to be?
Well, I think part of that is a public process by bringing them in, like I mentioned, having a session where you bring them in and get their views, but also researching past work that's been done, past ideas that have been said. So, but not just emphasizing, the past, but also the thinking to the future, which is the most important part, and bringing people together and to talk about their ideas and visions and so forth. I mean, I'm not going to, as town planner, I wouldn't just draft a vision myself, obviously. That's a participatory process that everybody works together on. That's, you gauge the public's feedback on that, the various boards and committees in the town, and, it's just an important part of it to, have it public, transparent, following the appropriate the local and state regulations that you have to follow, of course, and so forth. So that's all very important parts of it. Does that sum it up for you effectively?
I think, can I just follow on, Jim's question? Because sometimes we can't get the public to participate. I think there's there's an active group of folks here that volunteer for committees, and then I think what Jim was trying to get to too, like some people, again, it's like anywhere in the world. Like some don't want anything to change. They don't want. They moved here for a reason because Norfolk is what it is.
Oh, absolutely.
And, so. Do you have any? I know there's no secret formula or magic bullet. I like that. Meet the planner and the Tuesday meeting. Like, how do you have any ideas on how you get that vision or feedback? Because I think Jim's concern is too. We have 11,000 citizens.
Right.
I'd like them all to come sit here and tell you.
Absolutely. And I mean, you're not going to, like I said before, you're not, there are people that just don't want any change. I've seen that in my work and projects that I've worked on and committees that I've been on. That some people just don't want change, and you're not, no pun intended, you're not going to change that. But you just have to, make sure that they're part of the process and that they're heard and that they know that they have an opportunity to present, their ideas to you. That that they're not left out. They can't come back and say later, well, you never told me that you pursued this. Well, we did. We invited you to this public session, or we advertised this meeting. So you had an opportunity to contribute. And and change is not bad necessarily. I mean, people have to understand that a community can't always, it's not a stagnant thing. Things change, things evolve. And, as long as it's well-planned and the ideas are effective, and, I mean, that's what it's all about. I mean, you don't, keeping things the same isn't necessarily always the best approach. But maybe there are areas where things shouldn't change, and that's part of the planning process, determining where change should occur in the community and where maybe it shouldn't occur in the community. So
I agree. Like you said, change isn't bad for the sick, it isn't
maybe that's a
bad.
roundabout way of saying it,
No,
but
we struggle, I think, with that, getting,
Yeah.
because it's hard, because you want to do what's right for everybody.
yeah.
At the same time, you can't do it.
You can't
everyone all the
please
time.
everybody, but you have to make sure that they have a seat at the table and that they're heard.
Fair enough.
Jack, Jim?
Let me just 1 second.
So give it in the 40R?
I'm not specifically 40R Smart Growth District. No, I've not. We had a committee in East Hampton that did that, but I didn't serve on that committee. I'm familiar with the 40R Smart Growth regulation. Look into the specifics. I can't give you specifics right now, but I've reviewed it in the past and so forth, and I'm familiar with the types of development that, the elements of smart growth that go into, like, walkability things and, tight compact buildings, tight development and so forth. So that type of thing I've dealt with in projects at DUSET and so forth, and even in Windsor, some of the projects that we've reviewed. But I haven't established a 40R district or been involved specifically in the establishment of one. But I know that, but that's something that I could see happening here, certainly. Yeah, absolutely.
Could you describe your management style for me?
Okay. Well, I think it's a very, just a very honest, open, just mild-mannered approach to things. I think that but being firm. I mean, you have to, be firm. Willing to negotiate things like that. Within, obviously, you're bound by, obviously, and should be by, as a certified planner, code of ethics. There's state codes of ethics. There's also this state and local, like, laws and regulations and so forth. So as long as you're, complying with those things, and I just, I think I have a very, good, honest, upfront management style, but, very approachable, very, willing to sit down and talk with people, making sure that I understand something before I give an answer. As I said, it's just very, very important to do that, and, not saying, well, you can't do this, and that's not how I work. I mean, that's basically, if something is not allowed, you explain why it's not allowed. Perhaps the regulations need to be updated, the bylaw needs to be updated, perhaps to accommodate, a project or so forth. Perhaps the scope of what's being proposed isn't, appropriate, but explain why. I mean, that's exactly what it is. It's about communicating. It's about explaining, not just giving an answer and saying yes or no and that's it. Explaining, yes, this is why, no, this is why. And that's the approach I take, whether I'm dealing with the staff that I'm supervising, whether I'm dealing with the public or a developer or applicant or so forth. That same style, I think, is very important to maintain that. Don't, even if something might get you angry or something, somebody comes in and yells about their project or something, well, you just got to, approach it, tactfully, and that's how I see it.
Okay.
If you wanted me to go tell somebody, we got to hire Jason because of X, what would that X be? What's your home run?
All right. Well, basically, because I'm a hard worker, I'm determined. Honesty and integrity are important parts of what I do. I believe in that wholeheartedly. That's exactly what you'll get here. I have, as soon as I come in and see what the department structure is, I can create, my ideas of how, it should operate, obviously with your authorization, in terms of, the meetings we talked about, modifying, a procedure or something to make it more efficient, things of that nature. So I think I have an ability to come in and pick up what's there and build upon it, establishing a GIS system and having, that capability. I don't know where you're at right now with that, but, I have experience with the ArcGIS, ArcView, ArcGIS software. So things of that nature, having the mapping capability and availability there. So I think, just my broad background and experience in the public and private sector, combined with my, honesty and approach to hard work, I believe in giving 110%. I know being a planner it's not a 9 to 6 job as your hours are. There's night meetings. That's important. That's part of it. I know that. It's hard work. It's getting out in the field. It's doing site visits to make sure that the plans that are approved are in compliance before they're finished, before a CFO is issued on them, for example. So just keeping on top of things, building upon what's there, building upon the great things you've started. So and through that through honesty and transparency and hard work.
Yeah, but you don't have to work Fridays, so it kind of
You can do some project visits.
I'm sure there'll be plenty to do that would have me here on Fridays too.
When's the last time you saw Bob?
Bob Mitchell?
Yeah,
You know Bob?
I worked with Bob for a couple of years.
You did. I saw him at a meeting, seminar, conference, was it maybe a little over a year and a half ago. I communicated to him via email recently, so he's on my reference list. He was my boss over in Amherst. Yep,
I
great
worked with
guy.
him when he bailed out of Amherst and went to the state.
Yep. But no, I mean, as far as my career goes, I mean, he's one of the early people who really helped me along in my career, and I really owe a great debt of gratitude to him. Very important person in my past career building.
Is it true it was the Yankees farm system he was in?
The Yankees firm? I never heard that.
Oh.
That's one thing I never heard.
Probably a good thing.
Anything else, folks? Jack, Jim?
Have you read our master plan?
I've skimmed through it. I haven't read it thoroughly, but I've skimmed through various documents there. So,
Anything jump out at you?
not immediately. I have to tell you, I
Okay.
didn't get into as depth as
Fair
I should.
enough.
But I want to make a comment on the website though. One thing that I didn't mention that I noticed is the website. A lot of the information there is out of date, and a lot of plans are older and so forth. And I think it's important to. That's going to be important early on to make sure that you're getting current information on there and identifying what plans, like you have plans from 2004, well, maybe those plans need to be updated, and we need to start, well, certainly, I mean, you need to start looking
I
at that.
couldn't agree more.
So without giving you a specific on that, I know the importance of identifying what needs to be updated and prioritizing, based on the town's needs and what's been sitting there for a long time.
Set that as a goal, that'd be good.
Excellent.
Very good. Thank you.
Do you have any,
Thank you.
Thank
Do you have any questions?
At this point, what's, in terms of the process, at this point, are you, the remainder of the review process for the applicants?
This is it right here, right?
Okay.
Yeah, this is the last interview.
Okay.
So we're down to 2.
So I guess timeline, any ideas on that, or?
I think Scott's idea was potentially we'd make a selection tonight if the selectmen are prepared to, or they may want to take a couple of days and we meet again on, well, next Tuesday would be our next process. So either they'll make a decision tonight.
Next Tuesday.
What's that?
We're going to try and move next Tuesday.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Oh, or next Monday, right?
Or next week.
Next week, yeah.
Okay.
So the short answer is either we'll figure it out tonight or we'll figure it out next Monday or Tuesday.
Okay. Right,
It's my screw up.
All right.
It won't be long.
Okay.
Okay, yeah.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thanks. Great to see you again.
See you.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you.
Very nice to, excuse me, Rob. Very nice to see you.
Very nice to meet you.
I screwed up. I wrote in my calendar that our meetings were the 11th and 25th. I have no idea why. And yesterday I committed to go to the business trip to Chicago on the 4th, thinking it was a free day. Now that I'm not at Lynx anymore.
Oh, is the season done?
Season is done. Can you do the 3rd?
I think so, yeah.
You want a minute or you want to go?
Yeah, please. Yeah, I can do it.
So it's the 3rd and the 18th? 3rd and the 18th. Okay. I have crossed out the 4th and the 25th. And it's the 8th and the 29th. And I
Wait down until the election. You need to pick something one.
Election is the 6th, right? Good answer. Town meeting is the 13th. You ought to know that one.
Scott, you're looking much better than I would have thought.
He's taken an excessive amount of ribbing on this already.
Thanks, Rob. Can't believe Jack kept you in the dark.
It was duly noted that he had a confusion between vertical and horizontal.
Yeah, now we're on public TV, so I really appreciate that, Mr. Lehan. Thank you. And I apologize to the town of Rentham. Friends and family. I can go on, but I won't.
Everyone's entitled
Daughter.
to a birthday party.
So, I apologize again for being late. Traffic was delightful. I did try and call when it looked like I was going to be late, but I
Well, they both tried. They kept taking their phones, but
I
oh.
5:20ish.
You're lucky you didn't get arrested.
All phones, no answers.
Oh, cell phone. Okay. Well, the office phone, but you can call.
We did, in your absence, vote Andrea Langhauser on as an associate member. Planning board had
I know
already.
you really did, so that's why we snuck it in.
Okay.
Since we had a lot of choice since it started.
Lucky
planning board.
Andrea.
It's the planning board thing, anyways.
I think we all wish good luck.
You never told them we were ready. You said give them a minute. You didn't say when the minute was over.
Chepachet. I've never heard of Chepachet. Where is that?
Chepachet.
Chepachet. Okay.
I'll
Well,
tell you
never heard of
about
that
it,
either.
Gloucester, Gloucester, Chepachet.
Oh, look at that. You know that, huh?
Yeah, from the
What movie? Is it a movie or how do you know?
No, it's the no school announcements on Channel 6 when I was a kid.
Oh, okay.
They do all the Rhode Island ones. Foster, Gloucester,
That's how
Chepachet.
you remember that?
Yeah, that's pretty good. That's all right.
No,
I
that's
won't pick on them. Remember
probably not a bad
gentleman
thing.
had one of our candidate, one of the people on the board. We talked. We said, "Oh, you coming all the way from North Shore?" And I won't mention. Remember the person that said that, you know?
Then watch, I probably completely
No,
mispronounced it.
I think so. Ray would tell us that. Ray, good to see you again.
Well, let's put it this way. One of us slurred it up, I'm sure. Pardon me again. Oh, we'll go the right way this time. Nice to see you. How are you?
You have to pronounce your community.
Gloucester.
Oh, the other one.
Chepachet.
Yay! All right.
He wins.
The one I like, though, is Chepachet.
Kind of more where I
That one
was.
sounds more fun.
I can deal with it. I can deal with West Greenwich. That's the water.
you sign
If
this?
you
I
do
have
that.
not.
Ray, this is Marion Harrington, my assistant.
Hi, nice to meet you.
And you know Scott.
Yes.
And Jim Lehan is.
Nice to see you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Clerk of the board, and I'm Rob
Three
Garrity,
amigos.
I'm the chairman. So, welcome. Glad to have you. Could you tell us a little bit about your experience, even though we can, read a
Sure.
resume, but.
Sure. Well, it goes back to years in college, really, for me. And I was sort of one of those guys who never fit in. I kind of liked every single class that I took, and planning just seemed like a natural fit for me. I have an urban studies degree. I have a geography minor. And I just always wondered, how do things work? How do things fit together? Why are they, the way they are? And I always try to analyze the world. My experience starts off in West Greenwich as a town planner. Actually, no, it starts off in Coventry as an intern. And I worked in Coventry on a number of different things. I got kind of just dropped into doing zoning updates and subdivision regulation updates, and then eventually comprehensive plan updates. There was some consultants that were involved. Consultants ended up failing on a couple of different fronts, and I was the go-to guy. And I did pretty well, I thought. I helped the town get through all their updates and get the comprehensive plan amended and adopted by the town. From there, I was just going real quick, but I ended up working for the town of West Greenwich, which is a next-door neighbor to Coventry. Very big, very rural towns. Coventry is a town of about 30,000 people. West Greenwich is a town of about 5,000 people. But they're about the same square miles. They're about 50 square miles.
It's pretty big.
Zoning.
Yeah, yeah, and it was very big towns. I did, chief cook and bottle washer was probably a good term for the town planner positions that I've held. In West Greenwich, we did a bunch of different things. One of the things I think I'm most proud of is we ended up getting GIS for the town. We ended up working with the state and working with Esri, who at the time was trying to get their software into communities. And that's the company that makes the ArcSoft software. So that was something that we were able to do. We were able to get some GIS software. We were able to get some things platted out and get the town moving in that direction. Since then they've actually platted the entire town using the software. From there, I ended up over in Gloucester and have been working there for the last 14 years as their town planner. Again, a small office, chief cook and bottle washer in a lot of ways. I've picked up staff along the way. Most recently, we've picked up the Community Development Block Grant Program, so I have a staff person working for me doing that. What happened was we had some trouble with the program, and there was a consortium that was running it. They weren't doing some of the paperwork as they were supposed to be doing. Long story short, we ended up taking it back from them, and now it's part of my office. So it's been interesting. It's been a good ride, lots of challenges, and I'm looking forward to some more.
Go ahead, Jim.
Well, actually, that would be my first question, is why Norfolk?
Why Norfolk? I'm looking for some challenges, obviously, as I said. And Norfolk seems like there's a lot of opportunity here. From what I understand, this is a newly created position for the town. You've got a lot happening here. You have some growth that has happened in the past, and I think you're poised to have some more growth, maybe not in the residential kind, but maybe in a more of a commercial kind. So I think that, looking at the town and looking at what you folks are trying to accomplish, I think it could be a good relationship, and I could help you folks, and I think I could learn a lot, and, we could work together well.
Could you tell, since you mentioned it, like in the residential versus commercial, since I think we mentioned last time, right? We're 93% residential, so obviously there's a big, emphasis on trying to get smart commercial.
Sure.
So can you give us an example? I don't know if you study. I can't put you on the spot of what you do in Norfolk, but kind of, something similar you did maybe in Gloucester or anywhere else, brought business to town, I guess, is really what people are interested, at least probably watching.
I looked at your comprehensive plan, and I can see that you're heavily weighted towards the residential sector. You've done some things in the plan where you're moving more towards some commercial areas. Mixed use is one of the things that I saw in your comprehensive plan that talked about trying to have some areas within town have more mixed use. Some commercial development is also something that I think would be good for the town. What I've done most recently in Gloucester is I wrote a mixed-use ordinance for the town, the village of Trepatchett. And that ordinance has led to a few businesses moving in. We just, in my initial interview, I was telling the folks there about a house that was a duplex. It was really run down. And a local financial analyst has purchased that property, refurbished or rehabilitated the property, and now is going to be using that as his office. So it wasn't a total mixed use, but it was definitely a good reuse of that property. And with the Euclidean zoning that most of us have, that wouldn't have happened. It was a residential property. It couldn't have been a commercial property without the mixed use zoning. So that in and of itself is just one example. I had another gentleman who purchased a property on speculation right across the street from Town Hall. He's an antiques dealer, so he's going to live upstairs and sell antiques on the first floor. So those are the types of things that we were looking to try and accomplish using the existing fabric that's within the village and trying to get more use out of what we have already, and maybe move a little bit more away from the residential uses, because Gloucester is similar, maybe not as high in the residential end, but it's similar in a lot of ways, because we have a lot of residential uses. It's a bedroom community, for lack of a better term, and so we're trying to move in that same direction, try to get more commercial uses, and try to figure out how do we do that without changing the fabric of the community and trying to make it stay the way it is, what people really like about the village. It's a quaint village, it really is, and they want to keep it that way.
So, how familiar are you with Massachusetts law? We, have some peculiarities in our zoning laws.
The 40B, Rhode Island copied that. So I think I have a pretty good understanding of how that works. Do I understand it fully? Absolutely not. No. And just like anything else, I mean, even in our own legislation in the state of Rhode Island, I don't know it. If there's something that comes up, I always, of course, go right back to the legislation, reread it to make sure that I fully understand that. And I think that would be the case here in Massachusetts. It's a lot of the legislation I would just have to read and make sure I understood it. I would certainly lean on other folks to help me out with, if they seem to understand the legislation, get some background, and then learn on my own, obviously, so that I'm fully prepared.
Jim, your turn.
Have you worked on a 40B project?
No, I have not. No, we actually had one application back in the day. This was 3 or 4 years ago in Gloucester. There was a moratorium that was going to be put into place on all of the affordable housing projects, and every developer in the world thought that, okay, here's the opportunity to slam one in, and we received one. It was I think a 300-unit development right outside the village of Trepatchit. It would have just completely changed the atmosphere of the village. Me and the zoning official sat down with it, and we just went through it, just step by step, just walked through the entire application to see if it was complete. Luckily, there were 2 or 3 things in that application that were not provided, so we were able to
Gotcha.
deem the application incomplete,
Gotcha.
pushed it off. The moratorium went into effect, and that application didn't happen. So that's about my only experience with 40B projects. Now, what I have done, though, is as developments come in, there's a thing called inclusionary zoning, and a lot of communities have
We have
adopted
that.
those policies. We in Gloucester have not adopted an inclusionary zoning. What we've done, though, is that we encourage inclusionary type projects. So we recently had passed a 16-unit development in town with 2, so 10%, it was about 10% of the development to be affordable. We thought that was a good opportunity for us. It was really one where we just got our feet wet. I've got another one coming before the planning board this coming month that is a 74-unit development with 10% of the units to be affordable. And so what we've tried to do is, instead of having this adversarial relationship, make it more of an open, let's discuss it, let's make sure that what we're trying to accomplish in terms of the town's goals and what the developer is trying to accomplish in terms of their goals is that there's some sort of happy medium, and we all understand where we're going.
So it's just suggested, but sounds like you're 2 for 2. I mean, if I came with a 10-unit project, I didn't want to put 1 unit affordable, would you still work with me? And it's still,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because there's ways to do that. As long as there's opportunities to make that stuff happen, we've always tried to do that. My philosophy is not to go head-to-head with people. My philosophy is more, let's see what we can do here. If we can reach an agreement, great. Now we can start moving forward. If we can't reach an agreement, what else could we do? And that's what I've always tried to do with people. I like to talk to people. I like meeting new people. I enjoy that interaction with people. So for me, it's kind of pleasurable to sit down and go through what it takes to find out what people are looking to do, talk to them about our regulations, what our goals and objectives are, and to give the developer a sense as to, will it fit? And then they walk away and they can make a decision.
So, you have a town council?
Yes,
Do
we
you
do.
have a town manager?
We
set
do
up?
not.
So what's the day-to-day executive?
Very interesting.
How many people live in Gloucester?
10,000.
Okay.
Very similar communities. We have a town council. The town clerk is supposedly the town manager for the day-to-day activities. It's
Is one of those? Oh, no, you just thought, I'm sorry.
It works at times. I have to admit, there's lots of frustrations because of communication, because you don't have that day-to-day communication, or even week-to-week communication. But we all report back to the town council. We have 2 council meetings per month. I have a council liaison that I would talk to if I did have some issues that came up, and try to keep communication flowing that way. The internet is a wonderful tool, and I do send out stuff as it comes into me out to the entire council so that they're aware as things are happening, that, you know, what's going on.
Now, keeping in mind that this meeting is audio and videotaped.
Yes.
And is available on YouTube, you know, should one of your counselors
Sure.
decide to look into it. Have you had a circumstance where a counselor has come to you and said, this is a really good idea, this thing here, and it should happen, and you really don't, it doesn't conform, it's not a good idea? I mean, how do you react to that kind of pressure?
Well, I think, of course, it all depends. You know, personalities and you know, all that is really taken into account as you start to try to respond to that type of question. And I can't say that I have never had that type of thing happen. But what I try to do is what I would do with anybody is first understand what they're trying to accomplish. And many times people will come to you and they'll tell you, well, you know, can I do this? Can I do that? Can I do this? And you say, you know, listen, what are you really trying to do here? Let's hear that. Okay, and then move from there. And so it's more of an education process is the way I try to approach it, is you educate me about what you're trying to do, I'll educate you about what the process is, or what hurdles that you might come across that you would have to overcome. And then from that relationship, from that discussion, come to a decision as to whether this is something that can happen or not happen.
What happens if it keeps pushing or she keeps pushing and you still don't think it's right, or this doesn't fit with the community, or it's a violation of wetlands or something like that?
Well, I mean, obviously you cannot violate the laws, but what you can do is show them the way that they can go. And I think that's more important is, okay, what you're asking to do is a violation of one of the rules. But if you go this way, it's not a violation. Let me help you through that, is really my approach is, you know, your approach, I understand what the goal is. Your approach may be a little bit off. Let's move it into this direction or into this realm, and then keep going in that way. If it's just entirely impossible, I mean, I'd be honest with that person and say, it is impossible. We can't do that. You know, let's do something else. And I would put the effort in, and I think I said this in one of the other interviews, the earlier interviews, is that sometimes I don't know when to stop. So I would probably put the effort in to try and find a solution or multiple solutions so that this person has more than one avenue, more than one direction to go. And you know, that's how I think I would handle that type of situation. Obviously, without details, you just don't know what to say.
Can you, sort of a general question, tell me about your first 90 days in Norfolk?
My first 90 days in Norfolk. Well, first thing I would do is I'd try to get to know everybody. You know, try to get to know the council, try to get to know town administrator, his staff, and try to get an understanding of what's the global feeling around here as to what's good about Norfolk, what do we not really like about Norfolk, how do we, you know, in my mind would be focusing on how do I help them change that? How do I help them move into the directions that they want to go? And you know, I would take cues off of all of you folks, but really try to first get to know everybody and get to know the town. And I've said this before, 90 days, that's not enough. You don't know enough about the town in 90 days. A year? Yeah, you're going to know a lot about the town. At that point, you really got your feet wet. You know who the players are. You know where things are, where the bodies are buried. And, you know, you get to know a lot of what happens in the town. And at that point, you really get a sense as to, okay, now I know it. Now I got, you know, terra firma under my feet, and I know what I'm doing. Back to your 90 days, I would probably spend some time with different chairmen. I would spend some time with different committees and try to figure out who's important, who's less important, who are the players, as I just said, and how all that interacts. And then, along with that, try to figure out what is it that Norfolk wants to be. Because your comp plan says one thing, I would probably talk to each one of you individually, and you would say something different. And I think most people in town, you come across them, and they may tell you something a little bit different. So now you have to try to meld all that into some kind of vision and try to move that forward, whatever that vision is. I honestly, I don't know exactly what that vision would look like, But I'm getting a sense as to there's some desire to do some economic development and try to make some things happen where we can get some relief on the tax base. So I would probably spend some time working on those ideas and trying to make some of those things happen as best we can, given the circumstances that we're in.
You know, since you love people talking, it sounds like me, like, so you don't mind making calls out to businesses, you know, trying to bring business here to
Oh,
Norfolk?
no,
I mean,
no, I've done that already.
Yeah.
And in fact, I did that with Navigant Bank, credit union, I should say, in Gloucester. That was one of the, they were looking to come to Gloucester, they were looking at one site, and so I called the president and asked him if he's looking at that site, is he looking at other sites? What can I do to help? How can I facilitate this relationship in some form or
was he
fashion?
surprised to get that call? Usually, I don't know if he gets, you know.
Yeah, I think he was a little bit surprised, but what I did was I put feelers out there before I made the phone call to let people know that, hey, I'm interested in having something happen here. My council's interested in having something happen here. So let's see what we can do to make that happen. So he knew that the call was going to be coming in some form or fashion. So yeah, I don't mind doing that at all. I think that's, in today's world, it's the people that matter. It's a lot of institutions out there, but really the things happen because you get to know people.
Have you had a lot of experience around infrastructure issues, water, stormwater drainage, things of that nature? This is a town that's 99% septic.
We are pretty much the same thing. Stormwater, I just worked on a project for the town. We received an EPA grant to do an innovative stormwater system. Actually, it was supposed to be a septic, but we couldn't get people to buy in. We were supposed to be doing a cluster septic system. Couldn't get people to even admit that they had a problem. So we moved on to stormwater. And what we did was we put in storm drains in this one small neighborhood right in the village of Trepatchit. It's Tanyard Lane and Oil Mill Lane. We tied in the Route 44, which the Rhode Island DOT was going to be doing some upgrades to. They ended up putting a brand-new drainage system in the whole area. We took the first inch of their water, as well as all the water off of this neighborhood, and then put it into what they call it, a wet vegetated treatment system, which essentially it's a storm detention pond, but the water kind of trickles through it instead of just kind of being held in one. It's the new low-impact development type stuff that they're moving into now. So I have some experience in doing that. I have to admit, I have a great DPW director to work with. He did all the work. We had an engineering firm that did all the engineering. I kind of worked between him, the engineering firm, the finance department, and everybody else. So I was sort of the guy in the middle. I enjoyed doing it. It was a lot of fun for me. It was just,
Something new. Probably.
yeah, you get up in the morning, you get up an hour early, go out and see what's going on, and go and try and figure out, what's going to happen today and where things are going. So to me, it was just an interesting project. It was fun.
So how do you keep up on stuff like traffic calming and LID and the new hip planning stuff?
Conferences, workshops. Rhode Island has some workshops that they do. We do a lot of reading. Depends upon what is going on. A lot of times it's just generated through things that are going on at work, and what are we trying to accomplish, and trying to just read it and trying to get it into my head, and then try to translate that into something that's helpful and useful. I think the job of the planner, in my mind, in many cases, is take all this technical gobbledygook, absorb it, and then talk to you folks about it in normal human terms so that you understand it and you can process it and say, it's not a great idea, but, let's do something else. Or it's a wonderful idea, and let's do it. So, I do a lot of that, and, do I fall behind? Absolutely. And I have to play catch-up at times, and, I just went for a training for transit-oriented development, that URI, University of Rhode Island, and I think it was Rutgers. They work together to do this training. They do it all over the country, and they look at areas that have a transit stop, and they figure out what they want at that transit stop, what types of uses are applicable, what other types of things can happen there, commercial nodes and affordable housing and residential development, and you know, what is it that really can help that thing? So
What, do you have that in Gloucester? Do you have a transit stop there, or are you just going to better yourself?
I was interested, just.
Because you know Norfolk has a transit stop, so you were
Yes.
thinking ahead, Ray? Is that what you're trying to do?
I
You
was,
planning?
I can't
I
take
hope-
credit for that, but. it
Give us
was
your
def-
ideas. I want some ideas.
No,
Yeah.
what sort of
Yeah.
piqued my interest, to be quite honest with you, is the city of Warwick has an intermodal area that they've actually built, and they're going to be developing even more. So I was interested in that. I thought, boy, this will be a great opportunity to learn a little bit more about how all this stuff works. Again, it goes back to sort of my college days of, how's all this stuff work, and how's it going to happen, and why?
Did you play SimCity as a kid? I have a theory that most planners played SimCity extensively.
It's required, actually. Jack?
Have you had much, any of the towns you've worked in, done much with roundtables? So, you know, getting all the land use boards and maybe the selectmen and DPW and anybody else that's interested together to talk to a developer about a potential major development that's coming up?
We've done some of that stuff in West Greenwich. Actually, we had the interstate comes through, Route 95 comes through.
Like Amgen there too? Do you have some?
Amgen's over there, yeah. And Route 102 is one of the major thoroughfares. So we actually got some money to do a study of that area. We tried to invite the neighboring community, which was Exeter. They weren't interested at the time. But so what we did was we brought in all the stakeholders and sat down with them and talked to them about, what do you want to see this place turn into? How can we use this opportunity today to maybe move into that direction, create some vision for it, and move into that direction? And it was a very interesting process because, you know, different reasons people would come to the meeting, and then you'd get to hear at least their take on what they want to have happen. Ultimately, parts of that got included in the comprehensive plan, and I haven't been there in 15 years, so I'm hoping that some of that stuff has happened for the town. I know some development around that Cloverleaf has happened. There's a truck stop there too, which was one of those things where is it a good thing or is it a bad thing? You know, you definitely get a lot of traffic there, but you want that kind of traffic, or do you not? And how do you improve that? So there was an image issue too that they had to work with. But those kinds of things, I would look forward to that. Actually, it would be kind of fun to bring people together and see what their thoughts are and where we can go. I'm getting the sense that with this planning position, you folks are trying to sort of bring in the comprehensive plan. I know you guys call it the general plan.
Master plan.
Master plan. So, yeah, you bring in the master plan and maybe even move towards an update of that master plan, because I did notice it was a little bit old. So that's the sense I'm getting. I could be wrong, but that's kind of what I'm thinking is one of the next, might be one of the 90-day things to do.
It's due. It's I think, you talked about being the center of that, the project that you were, and I think we're looking for the planner to be, kind of bring all of our efforts together and, and steer them and herd the cats, if you will.
And this is a new position for us, and personally, it's one that I've wanted to see here for a long time. And I think we're looking for someone to help us create that job.
Sure.
Now, we have a job description. We understand where the boundaries are and what the capabilities are that we're looking for, but we're not planners.
Mm-hmm.
And we're looking for that. I'm speaking for me. I'm not speaking for the board. I'm looking for someone to help us create this position, or refine it, maybe is a better word. Refine this position.
Okay.
To more effectively meet the needs of the community and do it consistent with the values that the community feels are important.
And I can appreciate that, and I think most small town planning, because that's kind of what this is, that's what you do. That's what I've been doing in my career, is working with what the community wants. Yeah, I mean, you can write all kinds of things in your comprehensive plan. You can't do it all.
Right.
There's
Nor
only so much.
should you.
That might be the case. But there's only so much time in the day, too, to accomplish certain things. My joke is always, how badly do you want me to do it? You know, if you want me to do 60,000 things, how badly do you want me to do them? Because I can do them all, but I'll do them badly. But if we focus on a few things, I can do them very well. And we really might like the result of that. And that's kind of what I think you're saying, is that there are certain things that would really help the town. We need to, number one, identify those things. Number two, figure out what the steps are to get to where they are, or where we want to be, and then implement those steps and start moving forward. Be it with committees, or be it with the selectmen, or with the town administrator, or just the town planner running around and trying to meet with folks. That might be, you know, part of that 90 days of work. So, to me, it would be kind of interesting.
Like starting over again for you.
Well,
Yeah, it's not, you know, it's not, but now with a lot of experience too, so I think that,
I'll say this. I've always dabbled with the idea of becoming a consultant. And in the positions that I've held, I've always kind of been almost a consultant, because it's, in the towns that I don't live in, I feel more like that, because it's your town. You tell me what you want to do. I'll tell you if you can do it, if we can do it. And then, if we can't do it, what can we do? And how do we get to somewhere like that? And that's what I would like here in Norfolk to do, is if there's directions that you folks want to go, let's have that discussion and try and figure out how we can get there. If we can't get there, I'll be honest with you, you know, I'll tell you, we can't get there. Let's do something else, or let's pick something else that's on the radar screen that we want to have happen, and try and get there. Thanks for the mint, I needed that.
more water, yeah, please, yeah, no.
Jack?
I'll give you my HR 101 question that I asked before. If I was going to go try to convince somebody that you're the right person for this job, what's your, you know, knockout punch that I'm going to use to convince them to that you're the right guy?
He can do it all.
Wow. You're confident you can do it all. Okay.
Okay.
Everything we're looking for.
No, I'm good. You do it all. I got it. Good answer, but, Jim? You got it.
Sorry,
You
it's
got
a
it.
showstopper.
I'm still trying to digest the last question. Hard to have a follow-up to that.
Exactly. Yeah, you raised me thinking of that, so it's a good answer.
A question I always traditionally ask, but you've answered it. I think I know the answer is, how would you describe your management style?
I try to work with folks. I try to understand them, you know, and I try to build people up as much as I possibly can. Everyone has skills that they bring to the table. Everybody has things that they're really good at, and things that they're really bad at. And most people will shy away from the things that they're really bad at. And I try to build that and try to help them get better at certain things and things that you necessary skills, and then, you know, shine. You know, I love giving compliments. I love to find people, you know, doing the right thing and doing a good job, and you know, to me, that's my management style, is just.
What are your contract considerations with your existing employer?
When could you start? Is that
I don't have a contract with the town, so I could start as early as I would like. That being said, I've got a lot of irons in the fire, so I don't want to just leave. I couldn't just leave. Professionally, personally, emotionally, and every other way, I couldn't just walk out. So for me, I would at a minimum give them a month. I would probably like to give them more time than that, just because I know what's come in the door and what the capacity is to make all that stuff happen. Just to let you know, the town has been working, has two gravel banks in. One's a 50-acre gravel bank. The other is another about 50 acres. One gravel bank wants to do this over 55 development, as well as a commercial strip. The other gravel bank wants to change their zoning from residential to commercial and industrial. This last gravel bank, they came to the town 16 years ago to do the very same thing. It wasn't time. It wasn't time. The folks in town weren't ready. It was denied. And so they've been just working the gravel bank since then. I've, over the years, talked with them and said, hey, when you coming back? When you coming back? timing being, it always seems things clump together. These things are all just falling together right now. So I would love to be able to help them through that process and get some things rolling. I think it would be wonderful, a wonderful shot in the arm, and I would love to be able to make it so that they could move forward.
All right. I think I'm set. You set?
Good. Thank you, Ray.
Okay. We'll probably actually be back to you very shortly.
Okay. I thank you very much.
Because we're moving the other side.
Great. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Ray.
Thanks for coming in.
See you again.
Thank you. Same
Thank
here.
you.
Have a great night.
You too.
Thank you.
Very nice to see you. Thanks.
Same here.
Me too.
Is there a planning board meeting going on right now? All right. Well, our administrator's fled.
Maybe, hopefully not for too long. So what is your pleasure, Mr. Chairman?
Oh, it's just. Now, Jack,
Rob?
you have to remind us what the open meeting law requirements are. We have to debate this in public and on camera and all.
You absolutely do.
And we are the sole hiring authority of this.
You are?
And Scott, you sat on the committee.
Yeah.
that did the- What was the committee's initial thoughts?
On the candidates,
Yeah.
raise a 10.
Well, let me step back for a second. You guys feel ready to talk about this tonight? Do you want to do more checking in on references, things like that?
Well, I'm ready to talk about the candidates. I might ask that we would condition it on verifying references, but I have
But, yeah,
a
I'm-
pretty good level of confidence that they'll be fine.
I'm fine with that too. I mean, I had the opportunity, like you said, with the first round and then the second round, so I'm more than happy to talk about it and vote.
You're a seasoned veteran.
Yeah, no, it's nice. I mean, like I said, I think you asked me something about the committee. I don't know if you want me to answer that question.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I mean, Ray was a 10 plus committee size. One of the comments was like, we had a bunch. We interviewed 6, and we started. Scott, luck have we teed it up. I think he was next to the last, and then
Yes.
with the comment, everyone looked around the room and said, "No, that's a planner." Other guys were qualified, they had different stuff, but it just seemed to fit what Norfolk's looking for and what we're looking for. I think in a town planner, or at least in my mind, he is. But right, and that was the comments of the screening committee. But I didn't want to come in with that. I wanted you two guys. I mean, I think you guys read the resume. I'm sure you felt a little bit that way too, and wanted to see if he could back it up with his, his people skills, his answering questions. But I was, we saw a lot. I was sold after that. I was like, wow, okay. And going back and looking at it all now, I was like, wow, there's a big difference between that and the 3 people we put in front, even the 3 people we had in front of you. Those guys were, they were the 3 stars, and he was well above us.
Well, first, my compliments to the committee. You brought us 2 very good candidates. And they are very different.
They're
At least
very
from my
different.
perspective, they're very different. And I think both could do the job. But from my perspective, what I think the needs of the community are, I think one individual stands above the other. From my perspective, from what I would look for in an individual to be in this position. I think experience is important. I think the style is very important. When you come into a new community, you're not going to change the culture of the community. You have to adapt and adjust to the culture of the community.
Right.
And I think one candidate, at least in my feelings for that candidate, demonstrates that quite vividly. And I think that's a critical component, because they both have the qualifications.
Yeah.
So I think, while I think, as I say, both could do the job, I think one has the style component, the experience. Wisdom is a hard word to use, but I think he has the know-all, if you will, to work through an established organizational culture that every community has. I think he would be more effective, I guess is a good way to say it, or my way of saying it.
I was impressed with his ease.
They make you feel good? I don't know. I don't know what people.
Makes you feel very
work
comfortable.
for. Yeah.
I noticed too that he was talking over here also to people. I mean,
I think so too. Like working for, I could see working for him. Unless the references don't check out, it seems to be a pleasure to work for him, whether you're good or bad, and that's just the way he'd work with you right now.
He also has an air of confidence that is Now, I don't mean that and I'm not referencing his comment, because, I know there was a smile associated with the comment.
Right.
It was kind of a fun way of saying it. If you didn't see the smile, folks at home, it was there, and it was, he was just being sort of, interesting in his response. But he has a very pleasant form of self-confidence that I think someone coming into a job like this has got to have.
Yeah, my only reservation was if he'd been from Gloucester and not Gloucester. You know?
Yeah, but he agreed with you in the pronunciation of the other. So,
Well, but no, but 13 years in Massachusetts would make me feel better than 13 years in Rhode Island.
Oh, I agree. It'd be nice if you asked about
oh,
that
I see what
question.
you're saying. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, you're right. I think,
That'd be my only concern.
but the other candidate didn't have that. Oh, he has some of that.
He's very technically proficient.
Right.
Um,
I think you need a combination of both. You
Yeah.
don't want to ask a comment about you pick up the phone. You need a salesman in a sense. We've talked about that before because we need businesses here, the right businesses, and then the ability to convince maybe the other people in town that this is the right business. It fits within the culture of the plan. So I think you can do all that.
Yeah.
Curious why you'd leave your hometown after 13 years.
Well, we asked the question, we can only go on his answer, but
Oh yeah.
but the other thing is that he's he has staying power. He's not a hopper. He's been there for 14 years. I liked his answer about I admire someone that says I want to help people finish things. I'm not going to be here in a week. I'm going to need 4 to 6 weeks to get that done. That's a very good, honest answer and the right one.
And we talked to all of the candidates about this is a town that's ready. Yes, not everybody's going to love everything, but we've got an underdeveloped 1A, 115 area that's a great area for development. We've got some underdeveloped industrial park stuff. We've got an area here. There's been some changes in ownership, which I think could be very positive for the town. So I think he sees it as, you heard him talk about fun. He sees it as he can come in here and have a lot of fun.
He clearly likes a challenge.
What's that?
He clearly likes a challenge.
Yeah.
God love us. We're a challenge. Love our little town, but we're a challenge.
He's going to have one.
Yeah.
Now, I think, as you said, we've not checked references on anybody
Right.
at this point, so that is something that we'll want to do.
But I mean, subject to that, as I said, I think they both can do the job. I was impressed with the other gentleman as well. They're both very good candidates. I just think for us, this gentleman brings the skill sets I'd like to see in the job.
Ironically, I think Jason would probably be better in a more established position.
I agree.
Where we're building a brand-new position.
completely
Yeah,
agree.
I think we mentioned that the thing. It'd be nice if we had enough money. Not that I want to put him down. It can't be a the head town planner, but I think he'd be great. The two of them. If we had the money and the wherewithal, and we had enough business for them to do.
Yeah,
I think
Jason
it would be-
had the technical expertise
Yeah,
and
and
that
everything.
kind of stuff.
I think that's a great point.
And his roundtable meeting, his idea that opened to both of them.
Yeah.
And then Jack was trying to get ready to set up about have these roundtables. I think it makes total sense.
This gentleman's going to have to, in many regards, create the job to some degree, and I think very good point. I think Jason would fit better in an established job with very clear definitions around roles and responsibilities and things of that nature. I think very good point.
He brings the private side, too, that is intriguing, but I think
Yeah.
he's,
I didn't expect to like Jason as much as I did, based on his resume, but he really had thoughtful answers.
He did. He did.
and-
He's a good
and-
candidate.
Yeah, so.
Damn, I know I could do better than that when I interview. He did a good job.
Man, I saw his references. A friend of mine.
I know, yeah.
Oh.
You can check it out. Yeah.
So mechanically, I think I know where we're going here. Mechanically, how do we do want to check references, make sure that, Mr.
Yeah.
Goff is
Well,
not wanted.
we could pass a motion to offer this position to, or offer the opportunity to this gentleman subject to favorable, subject to mutually satisfactory contract negotiations and favorable references.
Right.
Yep.
Yes.
yeah, technically it won't be under the personnel bylaws, but it won't be a contract, but it'll be,
Okay.
but
But we would come back to you with that information, so you'd know what we were doing.
So just leave that part out, so I made a motion to offer Raymond Goff the position of town planner, subject to verification of references and background check, and the appropriate background check.
Do we do background checks?
Corey's, no, we would not don't typically do queries on that.
Do you do pre-employment physicals?
Typically not on that. We do in certain
Whatever the
positions,
standard
yeah.
process is for the community, we don't want to do something different than what you do for hiring anybody
We do
else.
for DPW and
Yeah.
police and fire.
Yeah. Whatever you would normally do for hiring a position of this caliber.
Do you want to, as part of your motion, delegate either a member of the board or me and Scott, or three of us, whatever, makeup you want to
check the references.
Assuming all those things work out,
I think
that we. wrap
I'd be
this up.
comfortable delegating to Jack. This is Jack's
That's fine.
direct.
That's fine.
Fine with that?
All right,
That's
so,
fine with it?
pursuant to Jack's successful completion of reference check, satisfactory.
Experienced as he is in that world now.
Yes. So the motion's been made.
Second.
Seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it.
And again, thank you to the three of you
Our
pleasure.
who did the pre-screening and the pre-interviews,
We had a lot of help.
Did a good
It was
job.
good.
We did, Mr.
and
Commissioner.
the others, of course, that
Can we
participated.
make sure to do a nice letter to Jason and thank him for coming in?
Yes.
Absolutely, yeah.
He does have great qualifications.
We had Mr. Kaliza and Mr. Byron and
Mr.
Mr.
Weddleton, yeah.
Weddleton and Mr.
Mr.
Palumbo.
Palumbo.
It's a good group.
It was a good group.
We made it as fun as those things can be.
Actually, that's a
They
tougher
wanted
group to
be
get through
there,
than us.
so that was good. So they wanted to be part of that group, so that was good.
Bob, did you have any, sorry, Mr. Chairman.
No, just go right ahead.
No, I think the reason that I'm here is we, the Economic Development Committee, were hoping that there would be a candidate selected that could provide some guidance, leadership, and inspiration towards marketing the town. And that's, what our objective in seeing this town planner there. What does it take to get the goals and objectives of the town in a position that they will market themselves to the development communities that we want to be? And it's, I'm not saying it's an easy question or an easy answer, I'm saying that there's a lot of materials that have been created, but there isn't a resource that can utilize those resources
Right.
effectively.
It's been a book on the shelf, Bob, you're absolutely right.
And, I'm not throwing away any of my 20 years of library at Norfolk. Certainly hoping that there will be somebody that wants to know the history and plan the future.
Well, he did sound like that's what that was going to be one of his things, making sure he got around.
He's
Don't
not
scare
shy.
him off.
He will not, I don't think he'll have any lack of willingness to reach out. Over there.
Oh, planning board, yep.
Thank you all.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you, Scott.
I thought maybe we were getting kicked
One more
out.
thing on my agenda, I think, before I go.
Yeah, the action item.
We did one.
Temper
action.
adjustment to the assistant.
Thank you, gentlemen, you
temporary.
did a great job on the interviews.
Oh,
It was good.
What is your recommendation, Mr. Human Resources Director, on the adjustment to the town clerk's salary? Assistant town
We
clerk's
looked, what we did for her predecessor when she was in the same position, and we bumped that individual up, same grade, we bumped him up temporarily 4 steps. So it's about 10%. It's a little under what the town clerk would get paid rather, if she ends up being the town clerk. At that point, she'll move to the town clerk salary. If not, she would move back to her current salary.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion?
Fair.
No? So we've done this before.
Yes.
Jack, you're fine?
No, I would just point out that Carol has immediately stepped into the position and done a fantastic job and doing what she's doing, and then also reaching out to people just to make sure that there's, that she's covering all of her bases, so.
And as was said, this is past practice. So,
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it.
Thanks, Scott.
Thank you.
Scott, thank you, sir.
Thank you. Really.
Jack, town administrator's report.
Be happy to. So I have some, kind of the first draft of the budget, my favorite time of the year. Take one and pass them down, sir.
Only one?
Up to you. No,
I was hoping we could get ready to come to the meeting on Thursday. Put it on the back. Can we call you temporarily? His opinions, thoughts?
all right. So this is obviously the similar packet. We'll be doing more, providing more data, and as the department heads came in, they gave you other information as well. But this is really the summary budget that Julie kind of does in one format, and then I take and put it in another format, and it's a good check and balance between the two of us to make sure that we're capturing things correctly. So obviously I have a revenue sheet, kind of what I call a budget driver, budget summary sheet. I have the expense budget at each of the department levels. Employee benefits, because that always brings a lot of interesting questions. Excluded debt, because the math is a little confusing with the SBAB reimbursement, et cetera. So there's a summary sheet for that. And last page is just a KP history, because that's always a big part of our discussion. So, as I said, this is really the first time that the budget's now in a state where we can kind of see where we stand. And at this point, we have, based on the requests of all the department heads, we have a 1.3, almost $1.4 million deficit. That's not unusual for this time of this stage of the process. I've taken, I've added the 2.5% growth that we would anticipate, which is almost $600,000 now. Only my estimate of new growth is $600,000, which is huge compared to previous years, but other than the last year, which we received that pleasant surprise of $650,000. So I don't think $600,000 is out of the stretch, and I'm hoping that we'll still even see something north of that based on what's going on. I haven't all that yellow section on the revenues. I haven't adjusted all of the local receipts. I want to still do some more work with the accounting group and with the department heads. I don't think there's been any drivers to make any changes to our fee schedules but if you have any fee schedules that you're thinking of changing, certainly let me know. I've got the state aid in there as proposed by the governor, and we've received the $25 per student in this Chapter 70 aid, which is only about $21,000. Lottery aid is flat. Hopefully the House is going to do better than that. I know lottery revenue is up, and they had a proposal to distribute $20 million in the current fiscal year, which was defeated. And the opposition said that's hopefully a discussion for the upcoming budget. So hopefully, we also heard House Speaker DeLeo talk about he's going to do better than the governor. At least he said that at the MMA conference. So hopefully he can deliver.
I believe him. I'm sorry. I should believe him.
If I look at the next page a little bit, and please interrupt me at the time, but the next page is up at the top in the green section. I have the excluded revenue, and I put that up there intentionally just so that because really it's a dollar in, dollar out. That's the revenue that we have over and above Proposition 2.5 that we just add on to the tax rate, and then we take that dollar for dollar and pay the debt for the projects. It's the library project, the Freeman Kennedy School, and the King Philip projects at this point.
How much longer is the King Philip debt on the books?
I don't have that schedule. I have obviously I have the local schedules. It's still, I think there's still
gonna say-
probably 10 or 15 years.
I was going to say 10 or 12 years. Based on what I see it going down here, I would say it's probably
It
about 10
doesn't
or
drop
12
very
years.
quickly. We do have some, and we can get to that later, but we do have some good news on some of the other debt in the not-too-distant future. The blue section, or bluish section, is, that's our other revenues. So the real estate taxes, we should see about $1.2 million of new tax revenue next year. But the fourth line down there, we used, that's, I guess somewhat self-inflicted. We used $350,000 of free cash last year in addition to $97,000 from the stabilization fund. So unless we repeat that, which I don't think we'll be able to, I'm showing that as a drop in revenue. So the net result is we have about $800,000 of new revenue. Fixed costs, and I use that term loosely, those are the things that we really, at this point, don't have a lot of control over unless we do, some major restructuring. Debt service, you see going down 58,000. Health insurance, we have pegged at about 7% going up, and then having still some transitional cost and some, people migrating to the plan, as well as changes in health insurance laws that requires us to pay for surviving spouses, et cetera, so we'll be a little bit above our actual rate increase, but that number, I think, will drop a little bit, and I'll know that next week. Norfolk County Retirement, we know that number, that's a solid number, we're up $96,000. And that'll probably be a similar number the next 2 years after this, so 3 years in a row. Other increases in the fixed there, to the Tri-County, going up 6%, $35,000. They're willing to, I talked to the superintendent, they're willing to come in and, as they offer every year, they're willing to come in and do have a meeting with us or with the advisory committee if you're interested.
What is their overall budget, just out of curiosity? Do you know?
I
off the top
don't
of your
know.
head?
It's
I mean, there are 11 towns, 11, how many?
yeah, there's 11 towns.
11 towns?
Franklin is the biggest component of that. I don't know off the top of my head. I'm going to guess that's probably similar to KP's budget, maybe a little bit less.
Is it just still based strictly on like number of students we send there, and then some kind of inflation factor?
Yeah, it's really I mean, there is some, they base it all on minimum school spending. They do a presentation. I haven't seen the presentation for it yet this year, but they'll do a presentation for their budget, and they do the minimum school spending formula, and they go through this very complex process of calculating the assessment on each town, and it's all based on your ability to pay, along with, obviously, then the students.
Oh, so it's not just a straight student factor?
No, but the ability to pay is the minimum local contribution component that is driven by state law.
Oh, okay.
So I guess to answer your question, no, it's not just on student population, but similarly, neither is KP.
No, I know. How about like Norfolk Aggie then? I just didn't know if there were any of those.
Norfolk Aggie is just based on, because the majority of their budget is, they're funded by the county rather than by the municipalities,
Right.
but then they rely upon this state law that allows them to assess an additional cost above what they're receiving. So, again, it's one of those things that hasn't, it's $10,000, so,
Yeah.
I'll leave it at that. So there's $322,000 of what I call the fixed numbers, so that's really a lot of the budgets other than our municipal and KP and Norfolk Public School budgets. So 800 minus 300, at least at a theoretical budget structure level, we have about $500,000 to $600,000 that we would typically allocate to the King Philip Elementary School in our local budgets. Obviously, that's never the case. We end up, looking at our reserves, stretching some revenues, making some changes, and we'll close that through budget magicry.
So if we, last year, I believe, I'm just, I think we did 8% for KP, didn't we?
7, 8, you're right.
Yeah. So if we, that would be 576,000. I'm just doing numbers. So, just seeing where that gap might close.
And I should, couple important things I should tell you. I have the elementary school in here at a 5% increase, and that's strictly just my number. They're still working on their budget. Ingrid has said, they're real close, but she didn't want to give me anything. I wanted to just stick a number in there that I thought was hopefully conservative, but also realistic, I guess, especially when I compare it to the Supreme Court number. So that's a placeholder that I put in. I really don't, at this point, I don't have any, I'll wait for them to give me a number, then I'll plug that in.
So Jack, you've been in conversation with King Philip.
I have.
What's driving their big year?
Special education, the number of students migrating from the 6th grades of the elementary schools up to the
7th grade.
to the 7th grade.
Yeah, it's like, it's up, the special ed budget's up about $2 million. So it's just, if all holds to what they predict. Can always
Yep.
get a little bit better.
I mean, they go through it, those are very forthcoming. They go through a process every year. They go, they take students on IEPs, individual education plans, and that come with an associated cost with those plans, and they take them, and then they have to go through a process with the parents of those students and work with them to. One of the biggest things that they do for saving money is to bring those students, some of them that might be out of placement, back into the school system. So there's always this process that they go through that there's a transitional period, and so I think what they're doing is budgeting at a worst case. If they weren't able to transition any of those, I think they're looking at a worst case scenario. That's my interpretation. Those aren't her exact words, but
I think that's kind of what
think
that's the feel
what-
I got from going to the finance meetings too.
Yeah.
It's like the worst. I mean, only way it would change is that's why they have that circuit breaker money, is if someone just moves into town unexpectedly any time in a year, they're obligated for that too. So if you walk in with someone walks in with triplets that are all on a $100,000 IEP plan plus transportation, they would have to come. They have to pay for that. So it's kind of scary, I guess.
So there's discussions and there's discussions going on between the 3 elementary schools and King Philip just to compare notes on to what those transitional costs are, because I think some of the pushback from finance committee members and that would be our advisory committee members, from here in the King Philip budget talks, is they've now gone to the elementary schools and say you're obviously losing a lot of overhead. What's the impact to your budgets? So I think there needs to be there's a communication process going on at that level to understand that. I know some of our advisory board people have been involved in that, as has Mr. Bugby.
It hasn't been going as easy as they'd like, or it has not been well received as far as I can tell.
No, and it's one of the.
It's tricky.
Okay.
There are, I've highlighted a few things. Oh, I will tell you, because I know it's one member's hot buttons this
Are
year.
you not even going to go there, are you?
No, I will. I tell you that, let me just make sure I got my numbers straight. Snow and ice budget. So just so you know what I have in here at the moment
You have 175.
I have 175, which is really which is actually better than that because, as we talked about at our last meeting, we're moving some of those start of the year costs, the vehicle maintenance, plow maintenance and sander maintenance costs. We move them out of the snow and ice.
That's where that extra 28,000 is.
Yeah, if you look at the vehicle maintenance
Yeah.
budget, that's why that one is jumping, so I highlighted that one as
38 or
well. So, I didn't, originally I had put the snow and ice budget back down to 150 because we were removing some of the costs out of it. But based on the current year, and we're right now about $200,000 to $210,000 over the snow and ice budget, I figured it's almost ludicrous for me to, with a straight face, to leave that at 150, so.
You know, I thought it would be higher.
Yeah, well, it's still only.
It is no-
210
February
over
25th.
150.
Oh, I understand. I thought it would be higher. One year we were 4.
Yeah, 2011, 473.
You're building up a nice little maintenance fund here too, Jack,
I do, and that's,
in the facilities management page.
I do, and that's something, that's, you can see, we moved down some of the individual building budgets, certainly the elementary electricity budget, lowering those numbers. Yep.
Was that because the cost is going down?
Yeah, the cost from some of the solar credits are driving those numbers significantly down. I do want to look at the solar powered generation number and make sure that that's
Right.
high enough, because we have gone, and I got a circle on my budget here. We didn't have the FY13 actual numbers in for those line items. So I'll add those to you and redistribute the budget to you. That's a concept that that I would like to try and maintain if we can, is I've got $94,000 in the major maintenance budget for the facilities.
I
And
think that's
really,
a good thing.
because we've ignored the buildings for the most part. We've got a similar surplus in this year's budget, and what we're trying to do is get the buildings painted this year. We're also looking at, we've got a technical, an IT technical, information technology problem, because we had to get off of the iLoop, the old coax iLoop between the buildings. So we did this 3 or 4 years ago when we renegotiated the Comcast cables. We went out and got a quote to replace it with fiber. So we brought those folks back in and asked them, they're on the state bid list, but we've asked them to give us a quote, try and replace that with fiber. So those are some things, obviously we won't pull the triggers until I come back and talk to you, but those are things we're trying to get fixed. That fiber one would be great because it would eliminate a lot of our monthly costs for, we've got Comcast contracts at each of the buildings to go right on top of because the coax, the iLoop isn't functioning for us anymore. So we would eliminate some monthly costs and also give us some capabilities that we haven't had in the past. Our phone, we've got this great VoIP phone system that struggles sometimes because it needs a stronger infrastructure. So, but we're also having discussions with NCTV to see how much they'll contribute to that. That
I assume you
cost.
have the planner in the planning and development
I
salary
do.
line?
That's the only. That is an addition that we have in the planning and development budget, and then.
Yeah, that's the second half year of the salary, because first year's already,
Yeah.
the first half was in last year's.
And it's the same thing with the police officer. I did, one thing I always struggle with it, and you can look at it and think about it, is I put a column in here for the fall transfers, and then I showed the change from next year's requested budget as compared to the adjusted budget. So
Oh, is that 5% school on the adjusted? I assume it is.
it is.
Okay.
That was my intention, anyway. So, I started the morning at $1.7 million in the hole, and I'm down to 1.3, so it was a good day.
Another day, you'll be in good shape.
But we really need to, again, we really need to figure out the KP component. That's And obviously, I'll hear from the elementary school this week to know
Go get him,
what
Mr. Bugby.
I already told them, I don't know how they could approve that, so. They didn't seem to want to listen to that. I said, you know, it's way, you know, your budget of $29 million. It's just, I don't know how you get that. We don't have the money.
I did want to give you, and I thought, let me just make sure I got it. That's sitting up on the copier upstairs. I will give you copies of the debt schedule.
There should be some pretty significant wins coming up here
As long as you
shortly.
promise to share that with your friends, you can have that. But there's the. I
Is this
have
only
the-
one copy?
Yeah. Yeah. Would you?
Oh, there's some very good news here.
Yeah, and then on the,
Go later, I mean, that's all right. Coming up, just give me the highlight check. What's the good news? I mean, what's coming out? Yeah. It's summarized.
We're 2 years away, or 3 years away from some really good news.
yeah, and what,
$1
so,
or?
Well, you know,
Okay, no, that's
we're
good.
taking hundreds, the thousands, not millions.
Okay, no, I mean,
It's a $250,000 drop between 18 and 19. That's huge.
and
Which
what's,
is why he gave us that other packet.
He wants to level fund with that.
Dad, look, I got some new money.
Yeah, I got some new things. I got some choices.
Some toys. This is my Christmas list.
Christmas is coming early this year. right?
Holy cow.
Free cash is how much currently? Two something?
I think it's 2 something.
That's
you
close
know,
enough.
We have, and then we have 228 in current year prison mitigation money,
That's right.
And from last year.
and we have another
28
225 from last year.
Right.
But 225 from last year, we can't spend until it goes through the free
Right,
cash
which should be in the
process.
fall.
And it's the same thing with the $74,000 from the FEMA reimbursement. So it's about $300,000, which
I get a
will,
copy when it comes out. That's all right. I get it. I mean, it's, you know,
On our existing budget, so the run rate's looking good?
on the existing debt budgets? I mean,
No,
on
no,
the
no, existing
revenue,
operational
you know.
budgets. Run rate's all good, no surprises?
I haven't, yeah, I got all the percentages in there, you know, there's some things that you, that we've had discussions about, there's, well, weights and measures is up 17%, that's still $1,000, so,
We can handle that.
so run rate. We can handle that, but, not to single them out, but the fire department's probably a little heavier than most, but that's due to.
Voted that.
Yep, we're talking about the, we've got the callback process and then adding the daytime officer.
But you don't anticipate, I mean, there's nothing in veterans or anything hanging out there that you're aware of?
Oh, I'm sorry, you're talking about the current year. No, there's
Yeah,
nothing.
no, current year.
I'm
Like,
not,
yeah.
I'm not getting killed in, no.
So
That's
there's
what
no,
we did.
no, sup- no.
Other than snow and
the-
ice, no, there's nothing.
Well, other than snow and ice, yeah.
no positive revenue surprise. I mean, you know, big.
Well, we do have one tax title, which will show up next year.
Yeah, we have one house, we have a house that we've taken by tax title. We're going through the process because it has a tenant in it. You know, the ideal hope is that he will be able to pay his, you know, we've, through the process that we have to go through, we're giving him one more chance to pay his, no? All right, I don't, I probably stuck him in another folder.
You done with this?
Yeah.
Scott, do you want to say?
No, I'm good for now. I got it. $200,000. Jack wants to spend on toys.
So we got, you know, $40,000 in back taxes that we'd like to get. But if not, we'll end up with a house in the not-too-distant future.
Which could be auctioned off and would be an affordable opportunity.
Yeah, we'd auction it off, and the Affordable Housing Committee could purchase it.
could bid
or-
on it,
Or
yep.
somebody else.
Or someone else, yep. I know it's a knockdown.
I haven't been inside. That's, you,
That's an outside observation.
yeah. Typically, yes. Just a couple other quick, you know, one more financial thing. We talked a little bit about, I sent an email out to you, and I just want to make sure that, you know, we have a discussion about it publicly, is Town Hall. We've had some internal discussions about vinyl versus paint. You know, we painted this building 7 years ago, and it needs to be painted again. So Bob's put together, or is putting together, an RFP to look at doing vinyl siding on this, and it's what he said is it'll be similar to what the car wash is putting on. So he's trying to do a nice quality vinyl siding. I think we did a paint job. I think it was about $30,000 that we did, but we had a startup company that was trying to get I think they basically did it for us at cost. So I think if we got just a paint job now for this building, it'd be north of $50,000. So we're gonna see, and I guess Bob suggested that I talk to you about it just to make sure nobody had a drop dead reaction to vinyl siding, and so that's what we're. And it doesn't sound like you do. So
Not drop dead.
certainly want it to look nice though. And
They do. I think they do nowadays. I mean, it's
Yeah, it's a lot
but it's still an
different
upfront cost of.
Well, the
converting
vinyl on that
to-
car wash looks like wood.
Yeah, I was actually surprised when
Yeah.
he said that. I haven't been up close, but driving by it looks nice. And
So an RFP or an IFB or?
we could do an IFP, an
IFB.
inquiry, IFB. Sorry.
Invitation for bids. I
Yeah.
was just wondering, because if it's an RFP, you got to write the justification, and I was curious as to what the justification on RFP would be. And then, do you have evaluatory criteria?
Maybe we could have an offline discussion about this, and if you have some ideas, I'd be happy to follow them. And so I think I also handed out because I know Jim's looking at it, the vehicle replacement schedule.
Equipment, not just vehicle, right? It's equipment, right?
That it is.
Oh.
Well, it's a little of everything.
Yeah, so we're gonna
It's
call it
mostly
vehicle.
vehicles. There are some stormtroopers and sand lawnmowers in there too.
Stormtroopers?
Seeing if you're paying attention, that's all. And you were, very
I'm
good.
having agita.
You do.
Yeah. This is much like the list I came up with after looking through the Sears catalog every October. My December did not look like my list.
Well, this is the same list that we've had, and we've updated it, and obviously, so at a very high level, we're talking about, this year, we've got some highway vehicles that need to get replaced. I think Bob's touched on it a little bit when he's come in, Bob McGee, but we've got some of the 8000s, those big trucks that do the sanding and plowing and moving of earth materials for us. They're 1980s vehicles in most cases, and unfortunately they're very expensive. So that's what's driving up the current year.
What is it, the ones in red on those pages, Jack, are the ones that need to be replaced? I'm sorry. You don't have to
They're the
have
ones that have exceeded their life expectancy
Oh,
anyway.
okay.
Yeah. They've got X's, either they state in-house replacement, exceeded scheduled replacement, or they have an X in the FY 2015.
Okay.
I mean, and there's some huge things here. So we're gonna put together some different funding options, and the department heads and I will have more discussions about prioritizing some of that 1.8
schedule again.
1.8 million and knocking that down a little bit.
Thanks.
We know we never end up buying everything we want to buy in a year, but this is, I guess kind of like what the school does. This is, if we're going to try and get rid of the things that need to get rid of and continue to perform the way we perform, this is what we would recommend, trying to save on our maintenance budgets. But, you've got those, here you can see those L8000s, they're $170,000 a piece, and we've got two that should have been replaced in 2012.
Is that because of life? I mean, is it because like the police in the run all the time? Because am I reading the miles wrong, or is that hours? 48.
No, that's miles. It's 46,000 miles, but they're
I know they take a beating, and I'm sure they're because bumpy cold weather, but they have no mileage because they don't go far.
right. But they're literally
used.
rusting. Rusting out in the back because they're carrying sand and salt.
Okay. So they don't really have then. I doubt they have a life expectancy even of 15 years then.
No, I mean no, and they're moving materials from the DPW grounds, out to road projects or vice versa.
I just like the mileage is low. I'm sure the wear and tear on it was like
Yeah.
6 times the mileage.
So
Thanks.
it's the salt.
Not just the salt, but that's certainly.
I mean, that really clocks those things.
Yeah, I think so.
I read something lately about how they don't put the rust inhibitor they used to put in salt
Yeah.
on road salt anymore.
They also don't treat the trucks.
Don't put the rust inhibitor in.
No, they don't. And if you had, I was having a conversation with, I think, Darren, saying the last like 5 or 10 years, the amount of undercarriage corrosion is just incredible.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, there must have been. I'm sure there was some downstream effect of the rust inhibitor to the environment.
The brackets on my little old pickup truck were completely rotted out. When Darren took a look at it, there was nothing holding the bed onto the car.
Yeah, my daughter's brake lines are all replaced. Has Bob thought about, there's a non-salt alternative, which isn't affordable if you use a lot of it, but, so a truck that's $170,000, if you bond it for 7 years, it's $24,000 and change plus your interest payment a year. So 25 grand is a lot of money. And maybe switching over some of our supplies to because there are alternatives that are less corrosive than your average everyday road salt. Now, they're prohibitively expensive if you dump them like, $1 million worth of them, but we don't buy $1 million worth of salt.
We couldn't if we wanted to. We can't get it.
Can't get it.
I don't know the answer. I mean, he can answer it. I mean, but it's not just
I
we're
know it's
looking
not
at like if you look at that DPW page, we're looking at H11. It's a 1997. It's got the 48,500 miles, and we would move that down to the H16 and. For example, or the H17, and so we would actually be moving the 1985 or the 1990 out of the system, and then moving the 1997 down to the second tier vehicle. So that we're really just using those older vehicles for plowing, because that's when we need a fleet of vehicles. On a day-to-day basis, we don't need 7 trucks. We need, one, 2, or 3. So it's not. We're looking at replacing the vehicles that have 80,000 miles and they're, 1990s. So they were. Gonna make some wisecrack remark about this.
I wasn't going to say anything.
No, I wasn't gonna say anything either. Well, not about you. But there are some, one of these vehicles was.
decal. That's the
Rob was
decal,
still in
yeah.
high
I know
school
you're
when
on that. I get that decal, I promise.
Well, you clearly weren't going to say that about me, were you?
Let me see.
Have a crank.
1974? 1973?
Sorry.
Wow. Or is it just cranky?
Oh, come on, you can't let that go.
Well, when you open the door that wide, somebody's going to slam your hand in it. Understood.
It was my mother, I'd say, what is it, a dinosaur?
So I guess I just didn't want to give the impression we were taking those 1997 vehicles aren't the ones being
They're not being trashed.
trashed.
They're being
the ones
moved
that are
down.
going from the front line to the back line,
Yeah.
and then the 1985 vehicles are the ones that are going out, hopefully going out the door. And they,
Are we going to get the capital outlay committee together here?
we are. Ms. Jacobson was working on trying to schedule some meetings for them in the next couple of weeks. So
Who's the liaison to that? It's one I never remember because it's a rare event. I thought we did. Maybe we don't. Do we not have one?
The capital committee?
Is there a liaison? I thought there was.
Oh,
It's where it went one way or the other on that one.
Probably me, since I don't know who it is.
I think it was usually you usually have the
Is
chair.
it me? I thought it was the chair, yeah.
Okay.
I remember Ramesh saying that he always wanted to be the chair, but I'm not sure.
Well, I know it wasn't me this fall.
Oh,
Well, they didn't meet.
then there you have it.
Good job, you did well then, Rob.
Tell me about it.
We didn't spend $1 that we didn't want to spend.
No, that's not liaisons.
Oh,
Well,
yeah.
anyway, it doesn't matter.
All right, I found my debt schedules today.
Oh, you found it.
Here they are. Sorry, I had them under. I'm in the wrong file. I knew they were somewhere.
Thank you.
You said it was you last fall, Jim.
Oh, it's me? Okay,
Last fall, because he was chairman. though,
okay,
right?
Thank
You
you,
did a great
Susan.
job from what we remember.
thank you. All right, so will you put me on the list for when they meet? Thanks.
So,
Police officers do we have?
17? No.
How many what?
How many police officers do we have?
17.
Yeah, right on.
18 with the new guy.
That was the other way around.
Gal,
Gal, sorry, I knew that.
who once again is outstanding. So we've given you the warrant articles.
Yep.
Thought we would have a discussion about them probably next Tuesday and close the.
Monday.
Monday keeps saying it's right, Monday.
So one other, have we had that discussion? We haven't had that discussion with Robin.
We did.
He said yes.
We did, he said yes.
Okay, so we'll have that
You're
discussion
behind.
Monday.
I think Jack was out of the room when we did
Yeah,
that.
we'll give him, I like the behind, but yeah.
We'll have that discussion Monday. One of the things that I just want to throw out for consideration is just there's a high volume of zoning articles. Some came in by petition, and those are always welcome with open arms. But there are some zoning articles that are coming through the zoning bylaw study committee or coming up through the building commissioner. And I'm not saying they aren't valid and they don't have good reason to be brought forward. I just, I would like us to at least think about
Pushing them to fall.
pushing them to the fall for two
we have a
reasons.
planner.
Yeah.
Let the planner go through the process with them, and then also that's our intent.
fall's for.
That's
Right.
what the fall was really meant for.
I had the same reaction.
Now, having said that, I haven't asked some of the authors of those if there are things that are critical.
I read them today.
Not supposed to discuss.
I'm not sure I'm a good judge of what's critical or not critical, but they didn't seem to be. A couple of them seemed house cleaning.
Yeah.
I don't know. Well, it's not on the agenda for tonight.
So, we're kind of in a waiting, I know people like me to get their budget done early. Rentham is just at the point where they're opening up their warrant and they're sending out Plainville, and sending out the request to department heads to start collecting budget data. Rentham isn't much farther ahead of them, so, until we have a real meeting of the minds of, I guess, of the three towns is typically the way the process works of where King Philip will be budgeted. I'm in a little bit of limbo to figure out how much I have to cut other places.
Although at one point, you can't get all that out of King Philip. The 1.4.
Well, even if,
No.
just as a suggestion that has no basis in fact, if you just threw an 8% in there, which is what we did last year.
It's
which was more-
500,000, I think, down.
It would be about 375,000 less than what you're seeing there, so it's just 576, yeah. I mean, that to me at least would be a ballpark number.
Okay, I can use that for
Because you know the 13 is not going to hold,
I don't think so.
but that would at least give you a place to start.
So, well, what do you think, Scott?
I mean, well, no, I mean, how can, we can't afford it. I mean, they have in their budget that they approved already at school committee it would require us to do the 13.
Well,
right?
they're required by the state to submit what really amounts to an early budget.
Right.
And they've done it every year, and it's always been a number that everybody knows isn't achievable.
Right.
It's a wish list number.
Well, they called it
I'm
level
just-
service compliant, right?
I'm not getting into the budget. That's not my point. It's just that for purposes of our playing with ours as to where we start to look,
Right.
that might be a logical place to at least put a placeholder on the 8% we gave last year, which is a bigger number than we've given in quite a while.
Right.
Which would be 576 instead of the 938. So that at least would give a suggestion to you guys. That's at least a place to start looking. Because if you did that, I just ran those numbers, if you did that and you looked at the new growth realistically, what you think you're gonna get, you know, well, maybe or maybe not, but you're in the $700,000 to $800,000 gap,
Yeah, yeah.
which is a little different than.
And we
what-
don't know the elementary school number.
No, but you got 5 in there, and that's not off the charts. I mean, that's
That
not
was gonna
on.
come in at least 5 anyway.
I mean, we know what the contract is, and it's not 5. So it's,
It hasn't been signed yet, right? Or was it last
no,
night?
it was 3.3, 3.7, something like that last year.
Oh,
Yeah, but they're in negotiations
As of
now
last
for
night,
next,
they were
for this
negotiating.
coming
Right.
July 1st.
that's why it's not coming
Still
up.
ain't gonna be 5.
They had a pretty healthy bump last year when you look at the whole thing. They had about 10% bump.
Ooh,
Yes,
The
they
elementary school.
elementary, oh, with their 100,000.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the 100,000 plus what we gave them in the spring.
Yeah, actually, you're right. That extra 100,000, that's the whole point right there. Because I think about $10,000 budget, $10 million budget, if I remember.
Yeah.
Well, it's a place to start.
All right, Rob, do you think it should be lower, or you think it should, I mean, again, they want more, but that's not, I don't see that gonna happen.
King Philip or the
Yes.
elementary?
No, King Philip for now.
I'm with you, Scott. I don't know how we can support that kind of a number at the moment. I don't know where we're gonna get $1.3 million. Well, the Jack usually finds it somewhere.
Oh, and the deficit? Well, I'm not, and I guess Joe Fernandez's mentality is rubbing off on me. You know, 1.3 million doesn't scare me like it used to. It's a, you know, it's part of the process. We'll make some cuts. I'll lose some things that I didn't want to lose, but
Your maintenance fund.
my maintenance fund.
It's a placeholder.
Well, maybe I lose part of my maintenance fund.
It's very sad.
It'll come back to haunt us if we don't do something anyways, Jack, so you just, yeah, we're just putting off the end.
Yeah, you know, you don't want to defer maintenance.
Ever, we just need to pay more.
We do need, we desperately do need to talk about public safety building at some time in the not too distant future, because we've got some heating problems there, and we've got some,
Oh, sorry.
some repetitive roof problems. We've had some horrible leaks this year.
Well, if the debt may play favorably to that now. Because you could, if I remember the first run at that, and let's assume it's the same even though it's a smaller building because of inflation, we were looking at about a 220 to 225 per year payment on that. Over 20 years. It was in that range, because it was an $8 and a half, $9 million project. So it was about 220, 225. And if we got it underway in fiscal year 218, it wouldn't hit until 219. Talking about the payment, I mean, the process is a 2-year process.
Yeah.
We could hit the
So,
lottery before
That-
that. And we could hit the lottery
We could,
before then.
well, that's always an option, too. That makes it even easier. No, I'm just,
Right, how do you do it without having to go to
Well,
override, right? Yeah.
Nine, just the principal's 450 on a 9 million for a 20-year.
450 a year?
450 a year?
Yeah,
Oh, really?
1, 2, 1, 2, you're correct.
yeah.
So we're not 200, so we need more for you.
Where did I
Well,
get the
we-
230?
I don't know. Again, I don't argue with you with numbers, because you remember them better than I do.
So maybe we were thinking of a smaller building.
Well, we've had 4 different plans on this thing. Oh, that was the renovation.
Could be.
That was the renovation. Sorry. We looked at the possibility of just building a wing off of one side
Right.
and renovating the existing fire component for the police.
Mhm.
And then building a new garage on the other side for the fire with a section above it for administration and things of that nature. And, you know, there was debate as to the pros and cons of that, but what made it somewhat more feasible was when dispatch goes out,
Yeah.
because we don't have all the electronics and all that kind of stuff in there. And that was what the 225 was. So it was quite a bit, It was cheaper.
It's cheaper.
But
Yeah, $4.5
it
million,
was
that's
cheaper, but not cheap.
So let's do,
But the need is getting to the point where we're either going to have to pour a ton of money, which is right down the tubes, or fix this.
No, I agree entirely.
Yeah.
But it's got to be timed in a way that you know, if we could ever time it, that we could get the cycle to hit something like this, because even you look in 19, it goes down another $100,000.
But I don't think, Jack, you think it could even wait that long, though? I mean,
Well, if it's 2 years to get it
I
going,
know
it's
what you mean.
another,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
another
yeah, yeah.
year
So no matter what, even if
before,
we start
before
today,
it
we have
hits.
to, right,
So you're 3 years out if we got it going now.
right.
Yeah, but Jack's got a fire truck, it looks like, in 2020.
We'll sell it.
You never, I mean, that's our plan, but you never know what exactly is gonna happen in terms of regionalization or other,
Right.
you know, so those fire trucks are,
You know, I take it back, it's a $300,000 difference. I was thinking only from the prior year of 18, but from this year, today, it's a $300,000 difference.
Yeah, and that's all under the 2.5 limit.
And then you've got another 100 the following year. So it's actually, in 18, 19, you've got a $400,000 bucket there from this year,
excuse me.
right?
yeah. Maybe our new state rep will get us a $10 million grant,
Go for it.
Homeland Security.
There you go. What's the water vehicle? 41,005.
That's what they.
Is that a nifty van?
We have we have the old senior center van that they're using for their maintenance. I think they've scaled that down from the $98,000 Rentham copycat to something a little more reasonable.
Oh, okay. All right. So, we're meeting again next Monday. Do you think you're going to play with these numbers a little more?
Oh, yeah, it's a living document now. It's alive.
Every day.
Will
Every-
King
every
Philip,
hour.
will we have any
See
King
you tomorrow at 8 o'clock.
Okay.
All right, 9. 9:30?
I work all day.
We have any other business before us?
I don't believe tonight we don't. I'd like to congratulate the King Philip girls basketball team for beating Marshfield tonight.
Oh, hey, good for them.
Playing Braintree next? Yeah, for sure.
They are. Braintree's #1 seed, and I
27.
don't think they've been scored upon yet this year. So
Some kind of serious stuff.
yeah,
That's a #1 seed.
Yeah. But hey,
Marion, I am not stealing your pens.
congratulations, Mr. Lehan, I know you didn't reach the levels that you wanted to reach, but you had a very successful season and with a great run at the end. And congratulations.
Thank you. Great bunch of kids.
I know, seeing what my wife goes through with her coaching experiences, I could see you go through the ups and downs, and
There are always emotional moments.
yeah, it's. So congratulations, and
But I wouldn't trade them.
yep,
I'm sure your wife would say the same.
she wouldn't for a bit. You just because you didn't win the state championship doesn't mean it wasn't a successful year.
Yeah.
Well, it's just 1 year.
Yeah.
There's a
I have
plan.
a 3-year contract, so just the beginning.
Is it a 3-year contract?
A 5 or buyout, yeah.
You ever hear John McKay, when he was coach of the Buccaneers, he went from worst to first in 5 years, and he was interviewed, and they said, "How are you so smart? How'd you know it was a 5-year plan? How'd you know?" He says, "Well, it was a 5-year contract. If I had a 6-year contract, it would have been a 6-year plan."
I like his answer, though, to be honest. Right? Hey, listen.
When you're on an annual, it's a little tougher.
Yeah, the life of a high school coach is not an easy one.
No, it's not.
All right. Well, thank you, Jack. Thanks, Marion. Thank you, Jim. and
Thank you all.
Thank you. Ms. Gleason, thank you for staying so late.
Okay.
Too late.
Thank you for switching to Monday.
I'm very happy that we.
Try and get the right dates in my calendar from this point forward.
Yeah, Jack, you got to do a good job and get this, get Ray on board, right?
I think he's excited about coming here. I don't think
He certainly appears to be.
Well, I think.
So we're looking mid-May. Well, it'd be nice if we could get him here for town meeting.
Well, I'd like
can
to
come
try and get
maybe.
him here maybe we can get him on a part-time
But
basis.
I was thinking the same thing, like,
Start.
if he's willing, if he's not, I know he's super busy there, but maybe not, come to different stuff.
Maybe they work on Fridays.
Yeah.
I think I was on his
We
website.
work
I
here
was on-
Monday through Thursday, and they're on
But
Friday.
they leave at 5.
Well, there you go.
I was on this town website. But God, this is a cute little town. We should do a town visit.
There you
A
go.
little cold right now. I wish it before summertime, right? I don't know where. I know where it is, but
If you are going to go visit, it's in Gloucester, Rhode Island.
I'm not going to say any
All right,
names.
Gloucester,
Don't
Mass.
share any names, Mr. Hathaway. I told Rob that story about that. Yeah. Someone thought it was
End of the
Massachusetts.
interview. So,
Yeah. No names.
Are we done, sir?
I think so.
Most.
Move to adjourn.
All right, we have
Oh,
two
no,
motions to
second.
adjourn
I'll
and a second, and everyone in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed,
Aye.
no. The ayes have it. We are adjourned to meet again Thursday night in a special session with many other boards.
Is that here?
it's in this room, 7 p.m. with,
Crowded.
looking at some proposals for the Lawrence Street property, mostly the Buckley and Mann and some other abutting properties.
I'm anxious to see this. Hear
I
this.
haven't seen them.
you coming?
but,
Possibly.
Are you coming, Rob?
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Let's cut down the end.
It is.
Possibly. That sounds intriguing.
Unless you get a better offer, Rob. What's Thursday? Yeah. Now that I'm on the wagon, I don't have any plans on Thursday. Drinking days are behind me. Life sucks now. You done? On TV.